Let's do it. Hi, my name is Charles Harrington, and I was the author of Tarot of the Vampires.
And my name's Craig Maher, and I was the illustrator of Tarot of the Vampires.
Really excited to take you on a little tour of our deck that we created together. I'm a sucker for a DVD commentary track with the director, and I would love watching those and getting some insights. So I was hoping we could get together and share just some stories about the Tarot of the Vampires. And of course, we're not going to be telling you the necessarily what the cards mean or the interpretation. That's up to you. That's between you, your intuition, and the guidebook that comes with the deck. But we're going to talk more about maybe the inspiration for some of the cards. But I wondered, maybe Craig, what was your experience of being invited to be or being asked to be a part of creating Tarot of the Vampires?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was kind of a day like today. I was out in the fall and riding my bike, and I looked at my email and pretty big job invitation from Llewellyn there. But I was lucky. I was able to call some friends of mine who had worked for Llewellyn before and done tarot decks and get some really good advice on, just some general time things and how to think of it. And I immediately got pretty excited because I love vampires.
Awesome. Yes. No, I was instantly taken by the vampires that you created. You'd created amazing, diverse vampires that were lethal and beautiful and just perfect for the deck. So I'm excited to get to chat through the cards with you. I've got a little cough, so I've got some water here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'm excited too. Yeah, this will be interesting.
So we start, of course, with the Fool. And in this particular deck, we have a character, well, two characters who go on a journey through some of the major arcana cards together. And she starts out as this innocent figure, human, as symbolized by the lily here. And she meets a shadowy figure, and she is intrigued and enters into the world of the vampires, which is how a lot of urban fantasy starts. And this is a fool's journey for me as well. This is one of the first cards I ever got to see, and it made me realize, Craig, that I think of things in scenes that are horizontal, and
Yeah, yeah, that's a tough one.
you you know how to frame things so that they're interesting in a vertical format. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I immediately thought of that. Not only is it vertical, but tarot cards are pretty tall, like very vertical. Um, but I've always liked that format. There's always ways for every format, but I just thought, no, that's not going to be a problem. Like these characters, these vampires and people standing next to each other, just um, I don't know. I was immediately calculating visuals that could be in this upright position. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. You just always think about your same, depths and layering, and you just get it all tight in there in that vertical position. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about this. So the writer is sort of the script writer in some ways, or a director, but the illustrator is the casting director, costume designer, lighting designer, cinematographer, everything. And I just thought about how, like, where you placed people in this shot kind of shows that we're kind of going on a journey. She's moving forward, and there's kind of this cool effect. Also, something that we've gotten a lot of comments on, and it'll come up throughout the cards, is your incredible use of light. Vampire fiction, modern vampire fiction, it's not just pitch black or gray, dark grays and blues, and you always have a great thoughts about where urban light sources can be and how this leather jacket is like, all this color on it from the street lights.
Yeah, it's we can't have a terrible movie from the 80s that has no budget and no light.
Yeah.
And we can't have all darkness. And I knew, you had seen my portfolio, so
Yeah.
I knew what you saw. So I said, yeah, I'll just be me. And yeah, it'll be nighttime, but we'll find every single way to have
Yeah.
light, color, characters showing, and lights gleaming around,
Yeah.
little touches of cyberpunk here and there. Not too much,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
but city themes.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and yeah, just all the color we needed to tell our story here, or your story.
It's
And
our story.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
one thing
for
about
me,
that
it
actually
felt
with
really
this card for me was that in the description I'd written, this character's supposed to be entirely in shadow. Maybe you just see their hand. And something that I quickly learned, or that maybe the audience listening to this doesn't know, is that luckily the illustrator will fix terrible decisions like that put there by the writer. Because if you just saw a creepy hand out of nowhere offering a rose, you would look at this girl and think, no, do not step forward. But the fool is about taking that leap. So you quite smartly put him in light, made this really, really attractive. Look at those eyelashes, and put him there. And of course, she's going to go on this journey. My other quick little thing about that is I think I'd written like, oh, there's a lily barrette in her hair. And like I quickly learned you can't have tiny, tiny things in a tarot card. So there's a giant full size lily, apropos of nothing.
yeah, yeah. My friends had told me, it wasn't even a negative. They were just like, yeah, writers for these things, they're requesting a lot of symbols, they're requesting a lot of details. So just, have a nice back and forth about that can fit or that will show or that won't show. The proportions are good for that, proportions are terrible for that. Just have that discussion, and we always did. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think she had no Lily, and then just the farther we went forward, we kind of looked back at the cards we had done, and you were like, yeah, she just needs a Lily down there at her
Just
feet. It
there.
doesn't matter. It doesn't
It's
matter.
for yeah, and the symbol comes up again. I also love how we have to make her look a little innocent. She's in her little Converse and her little white sack
Yeah, yeah.
dress.
I think we had her. Well, I had her talking about casting director and costuming. Just there's just subtle differences that we made her a little older than she even was.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we did. Like how much of a fool did we want her to be? But so it was good. All because there's you and me and the art directors. We just made her just right, I think, in this
I think
card.
we nailed it. So good job, us. Oh, by the way, obviously, if anyone's listening, this is not a proper review. We're gonna probably gush about each other throughout this whole thing, and it's a great deck. You should buy it with whatever device you are watching this on. Anyway, the Magician. So one of the things I remember being afraid of with this card was I had this idea of self-harm. Self-harm is a real big problem, especially for young women. And there's a couple of cards in vampire movies and vampire shows, people are always like slashing their wrists and blood is flowing. So I remember asking Llewellyn, like, do you think this is too intense? I think they're like, it's a vampire deck. You can have blood,
They
you can
were
have
ready
that.
for it. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could have just been floating there, but let's tell the story. Let's tell the full story, Let's
One thing I remember about this is it's kind of there's like the archetype of the wizard's laboratory, and this one wanted to be half sort of ancient tomes and half modern. So I loved that his iPhone is just on the table like we would have
yeah.
today.
Yeah, yeah. Like he just placed that down 2 seconds ago and started this ritual. Yeah.
Do you have any stories about this particular card?
Just some sneaky, symbols in the background. Just I had some reference and I added my montaged a bunch of things together. But every book that showed, I made sure it was actually like a something interesting. I have kind
Yeah.
of a sun and moon figure on that white book on the right hand side.
Yeah.
I have the Kabbalah symbols over on the left hand side, like
Yep.
local cards and stuff.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure all if you do look just if you're able to look into the details, you see some fun stuff. Little hint of that same sort of world symbol that's comes all the way in the world card on
Hmm.
his lap on his computer screen in the
Oh,
background.
absolutely. Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
that's so smart.
and then of course which this card always has, or we have all four of our things, which
Hmm.
was so that made this card so fun for me because when I was younger, there's a Mobius, the French artist uh, and cartoonist, did a tarot-esque figure that had a wand and a coin and a sword and a cup, you know.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, now's my chance to do it, you know. So I really love that he has all the symbols there.
And I remember this was one of the early when us working together on this card, and I remember because of the theme being this like modern vampire fiction, I was like, I was like, I'm just gonna be very subtle about this, but like, I remember in my note being like, okay, the magician has to be kind of hot. The audience is gonna kind of expect him to be hot, and then I think I rewrote that email like 3 times. It became less and less subtle, and I remember like an email back like from you being like, yeah, he'll be hot. It's fine. Calm, calm down, Harrington. And then I'm like, oh geez, his like plunging neckline. I'm like, okay, I was a little too insistent. It was, but I really like that. I think it's the character for this kind of fiction. But you know, I felt a little bad about that.
Yeah, I just remember, I knew what we wanted was these modern figures, you know, and
Mhm.
for watching a show on the CW or watching a movie,
Yes,
yeah, that we're gonna have some above average people.
yeah,
And
they tend to be the ones
what's wrong with
immortalized.
that? You know, what's wrong with that? I always think, when you get that vampiric life, maybe you get a couple charisma points at the same time.
Yeah, I would need at least like a month to like trim down a little bit before I would want to be immortalized. So the high priestess, okay, real early on, I thought it was important that there not be esoteric symbols that readers would need to know outside of the deck and the information. So, if just an example, a lot of high priestess cards have the Jachin and Boaz pillars,
Mm,
pardon me, flanking her, and people sort of most viewers don't know what they mean or what they're referring to, other than like one's light and one's dark. So I
yeah.
wanted to only have symbols that sort of made sense within the deck and its world. So I came up with, just part of the idea of like mercy and severity, the idea of the sun and moon. And I remember my original note was like, she's got these hearts, and then like maybe there's a little sun and a little moon floating above them. And then a part of this process, if anyone doesn't know, is Craig would send 3 or 4 thumbnails of different versions to explore. And so he had one that was the little moon and sun, a medium moon sun, and then this like bonkers big one. And I thought like, oh, okay, well maybe like the medium one. And I remember Barbara Moore, our amazing editor,
Yeah.
wrote back and she's like, no, that is the incorrect. It is the giant one. I've never seen a high priestess card this powerful
You
before.
stepped right in on that one, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
Um,
okay, standing down.
and it was cool, I mean, from my point of view, I just love those curves behind her, and I just love her being framed in there. I don't know
Mhm.
if that means more or less to everyone else, but yeah, and I love putting those big textures in there, just the craziness of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think people see these hearts, and some people are like, yeah, vampires. She's balancing all that, and other people are like, what? Why are they? you
What
know,
is going on?
yeah, yeah. I love it. I actually, I actually
And
love this hard
I,
idea.
there's a lot of world building that had to go into this process that Craig and I worked out. And I think for some things we have like an absolute explanation for why it is. And then some things we just want to be a little mysterious. So what is this ritual? You know, that's for part of like the experience of getting to tell the story with the cards. And I know that everyone loved the implication of the veil here and in her dress. So very cool
Cool.
effect.
Cool. Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
moved to the
It's
nice
fun
make.
to
Oh,
take.
sorry.
No, no, it's just fun to take. Yeah, like just little subtle things from the Rider Waite and just overhaul them for our idea. Her little crescent on her
Yeah. Oh,
dress.
sorry. I love this fascinator that you created for her. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and there is for the Rider Waite. If there's ever a Rider Waite symbol that's snuck in here, that's Craig being a very smart person and putting that in there. So there's her
Yeah,
cross.
just her little
It's not
cross.
burning her. That's okay. It's not a problem.
She'll be all right.
She'll be fine. So this is Lilith, the mother of vampires, and I remember thinking like that was a very unsubtle thing that everyone would absolutely get. And from watching video reviews, most people do not get that, and that's fine. It's in the book, so if you ever crack the book, you will see that. But I thought,
Yeah.
I know it sounded really cheesy, but I remember like she's the mother of night creatures, and in mythology and in different spiritual practices. So having her posed with the three of the predator animals, and of course in so many fantasy visuals there's a woman wearing a snake that's covering her bare breasts, and we went with that. lots going on. The tree, you thought you did an amazing job with the tree, and then also this star appears again later in the cards, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I wanted that little extra, like in the sky. Once I got that sky, I knew I liked how that was working. And but I had to put a little extra in there. That gives her a little gleam on the side of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, more good art director information. And from you, I just think, her skin tone was very important. Every little, it's a striking image, it's a simple image. So, even just like exactly her color was important, and
Yeah.
it was good input. Yeah, because it just made it better after I fixed that. Yeah.
And then when we were looking for an artist, I remember one of the things Barbara wrote was like, well, you have the trifecta. You wrote people, you have animals, and you have realistic backgrounds. So we need an artist who can do all three of those. And she said, and the hardest of those is the animals. A lot of artists can do great animals, and I found that to be true when I would see different things. So I was so impressed by you. We saw that you could do amazing animals, and they are so realistic. And that
Oh, thanks.
snake,
Yeah.
a snake is hard to
Really.
do. People put their eyes in weird places. You did a really
Yeah.
amazing job.
And they're always hard to get just the shape of their eyes. Sometimes they're round and sometimes they're sneaky eyes. Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. But we also did not do a horse, which people have a
Jeez.
lot of people have a lot
Uh,
of opinions on horses.
Horses are,
So they're
the Rider Waite
doubly
are just
hard.
terrible. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's move to the Emperor, which um I think I'd written that like he's in vampire fiction becoming the prince of the city. Usually that means you had to kill the one before you. And so I think I said something suggesting that like there was like some sparks from like he'd slain his predecessor. And then you created this like amazing pyre that is happening in that card. And I love the fiery energy it gives the whole scene, and how the fire plays on his scepter, giving the nod to Ares there. And this incredible, I think I wrote like a globe, the globe held, it's like it's like the crown jewels, it's got a little cross on top, and I was picturing like a stylized little bat looking like a cross, but then you came up with this amazing Rob Zombie kind of prop thing here that
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
love.
We went full bore on that little globe there. Yeah, I just thought the shapes were nice, and he's encompassing the whole globe.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I forget where I forget where it came from. It was just like, oh, this is Prince of the City. So clearly he's just burned down the last one.
His competition is gone,
Yeah.
which is very Emperor. I also if you're doing like a kind of a faux medieval deck, costuming is easy. Everyone's wearing the same like whatever jerkin or whatever. But vampires are fashionistas, and some fun that I know Craig and I had was sharing links to different. We kind of used everything to find these outfits for them. Like I remember
Mhm.
like goth runways, but also like All Saints catalogs and different things. And I remember like looking for the right cape, because capes can be so cheesy. So this is I believe an opera cape, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
silk of his, this is incredible. I think the silk
Oh,
of,
thanks. Yeah, yeah. It was important to get those little shiny bits that just somehow make it seem like silk. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I thought that made him, a handsome dude in a suit. It just added that little extra.
yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. All right, so okay, this is a weird one. I know it's a zag. I've been around the block with tarot readers, and not many modern tarot readers like having a pope on their Hierophant card. And
Oh, okay.
the interpretations that they give when it's the Pope is usually like dogma and false, like blah, all of this oppression. So the Hierophant is meant to reveal the sacred. And so I like didn't also in a lot of vampire or goth or dark decks, with the Hierophant card is usually like a dark priest, like a false priest or some kind of blasphemous
Yeah.
satanic character, and I just didn't want that. And so kind of mainly the main inspiration was the idea of having, just as in the Rider Waite Smith tarot, there's the roses and the lilies, and that was sort of the genesis for the idea of like roses representing the vampires, lilies representing humans. And then
Yeah.
I thought about Mary, and you found this incredible statue where she's crushing the serpent, and
Yeah,
you
that's
created
so
this effect. Can you talk about how you got this effect?
yeah. Well, there's just, I mean, I think we could find a similar statue. You must use your reference. You can't go out and take pictures of every single thing you need to do, especially when
Yeah,
you have 48 cards. Um, but I always fuse multiple references together. But there's
yeah,
just some incredible work that these uh, carvers do with the marble, making it look like a veil. And I just became fascinated with that, and I just said, "All right, I have to pull off that veil look, and while she still looks like a statue."
yeah.
So
It is awesome.
getting her head, in this made me, uh, there's little things in a piece that you go, okay, if that's right, then everything else is easy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I even remember
Yeah.
so sometimes when I would write whatever the little script was, sometimes you would throw in little things like maybe this, maybe this, maybe this, and like you tended to put all of them in there if it made sense. And I remember having like maybe it says in Latin everyone is welcome. So then I'm like, oh, Craig looked up what that is, and he put it on the church. So good job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now would a church have that? I don't know, but it's been a minute.
Oh yeah. I don't know my Catholic churches all that well, but I thought, yeah, it fits there. And you
That
mentioned
works.
it, so yeah.
So then we return to these two. So she has followed him. She's no longer in her white sack dress, the fool. I sometimes think of her as Lily, and but oh well, but no longer. And she's again, there's the self-harm, but I think it just looks so great. You did such a good job of making this look like intentional and her choice. And they do look like they could be in their a new CW series starting this fall, now that the strike is over. But one detail that I think stands out for a lot of like when I've watched a commentary, people love this severe angel, and the decision to have her face this one direction was such a cool thing, and then just the musculature of the statue's arm. But what do you remember about this card?
Yeah, I just didn't it didn't seem like two lovers getting together, happy scenario. A human and a vampire getting together should be a little more fraught.
Yes,
And so it's all happening out in the graveyard.
that
But yeah,
yes,
yeah, the statue, I mean, conceivably it's not meant to be, but they don't care, our two characters.
yeah. It should be at this point. It's a bad idea, and I think I love that in this scene. He's the one who's like a little bit dubious about this
Yeah.
relationship. Like, oh, what are we doing here? Like this, you were supposed to be a snack. So it happens. It happens to all of us. So we'll see them again. Now this, okay, I remember seeing that. Okay, I'd written my two references for this card. One was the idea of vampires being so associated with New Orleans and Mardi Gras. It felt like a great place to have a chariot because when you have these decks set in the modern world, like, where is there a chariot? Why would there be a chariot apropos of nothing? So to my mind, it
Yeah.
was having, and then the sphinxes, replacing the sphinxes with an African American gentleman in the white and a white man in the black, having these contrasting things, and
Mhm.
comedy and tragedy did such a good job. But so I was just picturing them pulling a chariot, kind of, and then you sent this float that's just incredible. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is, I have to say, on a side note, that this is one of those cards that made you, as an illustrator, go, "Oh, I love this. Oh, I hate this. Just throw Mardi Gras in the background." That's a challenge.
Yeah,
All the buildings and all the, and there's really a flavor to the buildings down there, and to the crowds. Um, but it all ends up being great because then you pull it off, and you get the glow you want, and the
yeah,
lights, and the layers. Um, and so I just started looking at the floats, and they're incredible. I want to be a float designer
yeah. Well, now you
now.
are.
And the so all our symbols could be in there and be these giant. I suppose they're fiberglass farms or something. I don't know
Yeah,
what they use. And I said, oh, the roses can be in there, but they can be all glittery, and the hands, these sort of crazy figures that you see,
Yeah.
they are on the floats, and so
Yeah.
it had to be the Count or something similar to the Count.
Very iconic. And I like the juxtaposition of, so in a lot of modern vampire fiction, the vampires can be a little arch about Dracula imagery, right? And be like, oh, okay, it's not like the movies kind of thing. And so I like them playing with that. This is also a good place to note we wanted to have subtle, subtle references to vampire fiction, but never in a way that the reader needs to know exactly what we're referring to. But to
Yeah,
a vampire fan, they
yeah,
might know it. And this is one of the first ones. This is a little bit like a hint at Santanica Pandemonia from Dusk Till Dawn. And
yeah,
then just to note, obviously, you did not. It's like Craig would always do like a type, like kind of like that as a type or as an inspiration, as opposed to like trying to recreate Salma Hayek here. So it's a very different woman, but the headdress has that same feel of Santanica, and her
yeah, yeah.
pose and her claws just look fantastic.
And just the confidence. Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
So
fun
now
character.
the next card is the one that always makes people pause when they see it. This incredible strength card you did. Okay, all right. This is how unfair the work load is. So I come up with the idea, and I'm like, oh, a woman with a stylized lion made out of blood in her chest. And I remember asking Barbara, like, "Oh, I don't know how he would do this. This happened with two cards. I don't know what this means. Like, what does it mean?" And she's like, Craig's the illustrator. He's the visual artist. He's gonna figure it out better than you can. Like you're gonna, the version you come up with is not the version that he's gonna come up with. And I remember just picturing like a little lion's head in her chest, and you created this powerful thing. The effect in her hair, it's like she's underwater. And I know you did like a bunch of different versions of the
Yeah, I think that.
hair.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I have this bad feeling that this may have been the first one where I was like, "So what are you talking about?"
Like, what is
uh,
wrong with you?
but you like what? No, I definitely wasn't implying that because I was down for crazy vampire stuff. But I think that's I'm sure it was me. I just wasn't quite picking up what was being laid down. But we just had a couple notes about it, and I got it, and then it is a little bit like she said, it's like well, just in the sense that just start sketching, like don't don't go back and forth with Charles. Just start sketching something and you find something cool and then show him that. But I thought it was a cool idea once I kind of got it, and then
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know where the drips came from, but once I got them, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. I
She's caught
remember
in this.
in like reading like Laurel K. Hamilton novels and things like that, there was this idea that the beast, or like the hunger, and I think that comes up in Anne Rice, like the hunger for blood. And a writer can write that, and a writer can write things like, oh, it was clawing at her insides to get out, and you can, oh, you're with you. But in a visual arts piece, like, how do you infer that? And I think you did such an incredible job, and the like gravity, like wonkiness, but also the one of the things Barbara commented on, I remember, was the hands looking so bestial, like she's clawing at the earth, trying to like restrain her hunger.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was an important part that, veered away from her just being a CW gal, but
Yeah.
but needed for this one, the grip
Yeah.
was, she was holding on tight. Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
her and one of our great Fang shots, because we discussed how hard it is to actually show fangs and not have them
Oh,
look kind of goofy.
yeah. So something I've noticed in most, if you watch a vampire show, the vampires aren't just walking around with like saber tooth type of things. They are
Yeah.
subtle, and they like at some point, which is not in the original Dracula or Carmilla or any of that, but this idea that they are retractable started once makeup artists could figure that out. And I know like
Mm,
Buffy and things like that. So in a lot of vampire deck, and I love vampire decks. I've owned all of them. They're great, but there's usually just like every vampire snarling all the time because they have to show the fangs. So
yeah.
and we'll point this out in other cards. You have an amazing job of creating this sense that there's something wrong about their teeth. Like there's just like a hint of something without them thing. But this is a proper fangs. She's got
Yeah,
double fangs.
we had to have at least one. Yeah.
She's got bottom fangs. Oh, hello. Great job.
Yeah.
Oh, and it
Yeah.
matches. Yeah, the yes. Anyhow, I love this strength card. And to your point, I think usually the strength is like, oh, it's just like the woman calming the lion, and everyone looks gentle, and it's this idea of like, it's so easy, just be cool. And like this is what strength actually feels like, of like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
this is hard to control myself.
Or when you need strength. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So now we move to, all right, this is for me was an obvious allusion to the Vampire Diaries and the idea of like Stefan. And but it's not just Stefan, but in a lot of vampire fiction, there's a brooding, sexy guy, and like Angel and yeah, different characters in
Sure.
vampire
Yeah.
fiction. So, and the idea also of like, also the idea of the Vampire Chronicles is like Louis and other vampires telling their story and writing it down because they have no one to talk to. Everyone else dies around them.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and I wanted also, if anyone's seen the original black and white Hunchback of Notre Dame, where he's talking to the gargoyle and he's so depressed and he's like, oh, would that I were stone like you. So I like the idea of gargoyles feel very lonely, and I think you did
Yeah.
an amazing job of making this one look just despondent and lonely and kind of by itself.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's so much fun to do, to pick and choose some gargoyles. Mostly to highlight him,
Mhm.
mostly to frame him, but what fun to get those shapes in there. But yeah, we couldn't have one of those goofy gargoyles that's like spitting water or something. It had to be this.
Spout. There
Yeah, it had
also
to be this guy.
there's also and this is another moment where Charles didn't include the important symbol that a lot of readers are going to look for, and Craig added it in. That lantern, especially with the star in the center, is reminiscent of the Rider-Waite-Smith's Hermit's lantern. And I know that I didn't add that. I know that was 100% you being like, people are going to look for this.
Yeah, but it was fun, and that there's we want our light, we want our color, even on our darkest vampire cards. So yeah,
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 very
that was
cool.
fun to include.
Let's go to, all right, this is a very simple. So Wheel of Fortune, vampires always have these lore books showing things, and to my mind, the Wheel of Fortune, it's a very mysterious card. A lot of people don't know how to read it, and because it's just sort of luck.
Mm,
And I read with reversals, so I had a very simple way of looking at the Wheel of Fortune, which is just like, are you the wolf? It's upright. You are the predator. Things are going your way. Are you the bunny? Things are not going your way.
yeah,
The
yeah,
it's a very easy card. I remember I think like imagining like being like a 14th century woodcut, but I like what instead is that the book is like magic and it's coming to life, is to my mind what's going on. Like it's showing this scene. And I also love how you got the I believe that's the zodiac symbols for the fixed. So normally you'd have the four angels in the Rider-Waite-Smith,
yeah,
representing the four fixed signs of the zodiac, and you added them all here.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you liked that, the colorful sort of coming to life, because the more I worked on, there was a certain amount of time for each card, and the
Yeah,
more I worked on it, the more I was like, the background looks like a book. This looks like, an animated scene coming to life, out of the book.
yeah,
So I'm glad that worked for you, because
it's
yeah, it was
much better.
kind of glowing out of it. So
Yeah,
a little magic there.
love it. So this character, this is like an interesting thing to note. This character first appeared not in this card, but in the Two of Swords.
Yeah.
We wanted, if you're gonna have a vampire tower, you also have to have victims and you have to have hunters.
Yeah.
And so we'd written, I remember writing like, oh, Latina vampire, and I think I sent you from like a women's haircut site, an image to of a haircut, and you created this person, but I noticed that you'd made them even more androgynous. And I thought, oh, the Two of Swords and also the Justice card really would be great for talking about being non-binary. And to my mind, you'd created this like perfectly like non-binary person in that image, and also the mythology of the card and the balance between opposing forces. It seemed like something to come to life, but it's one of those funny things where sometimes reviewers will say like, oh, this is deck's very heteronormative, and I'm like, well, how would you show a non-binary person? How would what without any, like unless they have the flag or something. So anyway, okay, that's a diatribe or like a digression, just talk about like being the non-binary. But this is a card that Barbara actually challenged me on. I remember her thinking that this should really be like a vampire's sense of justice. So I went back to the drawing board a couple times to
Oh,
figure out how to have this card be a vampire. And I kind of came back to Barbara with like, no, vampires are amoral. They're not necessarily immoral, but they don't really believe in the concept of justice. They're predators. They go and they get what they want. So
yeah,
the way in this world to show justice, and like right and wrong and truth and fighting for that, and also a stark reality, is the vampire hunter. And then I'll just say I love that a lot of the vampire cards have these like rich, sumptuous like colors and fabrics and things, and I like how harsh the environment, Spartan the environment is for the hunter.
yeah. Yeah. The fun thing with me for the hunter was, yeah, it was first in the Two of Swords, which we may go past, and she she just as you know, as it all started to come together, she just had these rippling muscles in her arms.
Yes,
I was like,
she's works out.
but yeah, yeah, and I was
Or they
just
work
like,
out,
but
excuse me.
she is going to be swinging these swords. I was like, I think this is just right for her, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, when we came back to her here, yeah, I just thought she doesn't care about environment. She just enough room to train, you know.
Yeah.
A little taste from uh, Japanese dojos and a
Yeah.
little cyberpunk light touch, just a touch of that.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
outfit.
and just a little color on her. I was happy when I got that shirt together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love
That's
this
what I would
card.
wear to
Yeah,
just do some training, you know.
yeah, sure.
Sure. I guess one other thing about this card, it's funny. I think in a lot of vampire hunter movies love a training montage, and there's usually a scene where they're fighting blindfolded because they have to be able to sense and this training pays
Yeah,
off in the 2 and 10 of wands swords, the 2 and 10 of swords.
yeah,
But what I will say is I remember later reading, I think it was like Rachel Pollack writing about how like it's important that the tarot justice card is not blindfolded because they seem like, ah, damn it, well, there's different interpretations for everything, Rachel. So all right, so now we move to the Hanged Man. I want to note this Hanged Man, but like this art was completed before Midnight Mass came out. But I remember thinking like, oh man, people are gonna think that's like just that vampire from the Netflix miniseries Midnight Mass. But it really is an archetype of the bat-like ancient vampire. And I love that this is sort of the moment of awakening, and the way that
yeah,
the eyes
yeah.
glow. You did an incredible job with this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was so glad when I came upon this description because I was like, oh yeah, we can do the full wings and the strange, ancient looking being. Yeah,
And I love
and
how old the cave is, because like most of the deck is set like in like a city, right? Where it's all modern. But like the drippiness of the rocks that have been forming, over thousands of years really sells that the stillness to me of this scene.
yeah, yeah, and just he's constructed this perfect spot there.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of Hollywood lights he've also wired in there, but whatever.
Oh yeah, it's a
Plenty
very
pops
well
out.
lit cave. I'm sure it's lichen. Now I remember at the time, I remember thinking it was so important that he's wearing jeans so that we don't think it's like a tens of thousands year old vampire. To be honest with you, I couldn't figure out why that is, and I don't know why he's wearing jeans. He is. I like that you made him kind of 70s jeans so that they're like he's been there
Yeah,
for a
yeah. I
while.
guess I guess we wanted him to, touch upon the other parts of the deck too.
Hmm.
So yeah, just like what's he wearing? Yeah, just he's been out in the world and he's going back out to cause
Yeah,
more him. So
very cool. So now, and also, I thought it was interesting. You have the staircase because, like, well, one, how does he get out of here? But it does suggest to the reader, like, okay, so how long? Once you get out of this, how are you going? There's going to be a need to ascend again. Anyway, just a little subtle
mm,
thing. So I
mm,
love this death card. So now the young woman on the Fool has made this decision to become a vampire. One needs somewhere in a vampire deck for there to be a neck with two holes in it dripping
yeah,
blood. But
yeah.
The I'd written, again, this is me thinking horizontally. I'd written that we see like the finger poised with the drop of blood and being like, how subtle can that be really? And how do you do that? And I love that, like, the framing of this moment. It's so great. If you had to stop and think about it, like, that's a weird way to hold your hand over her mouth if you want this to happen, but it just
Yeah.
looks so damn cool that who cares?
Yeah, yeah. If you looked at this from any other angle, you're like, that's inefficient.
Yeah,
But if you look at it from this angle, hopefully,
yeah,
and my what comes out in a sketch and tells you everything is right is that like the diagonals are just bouncing you like
nice.
around the subjects, around their faces, so her one, just below the bite, her dress comes across, and then the
Mhm.
wrinkles of his shirt. All these little, flowy details, if they can somehow add to that main subject, which is their two
Yeah.
pieces playing
And
off of each other.
like a card that has, I'm gonna talk about the colors in a second, but like there's so much darkness, and then her hair is this beautiful red and it looks like a Vidal Sassoon commercial, like low quality hair. So what one thing I love about this card, the absolute blackness of the background. To my mind, that calls to like that when she's dying, she's losing her human senses. And so now
Oh
it's
yeah,
going
yeah,
fuzzy. It's like there's nothing else. But it's like in a deck that's already kind of nighttime. This is the one card where there's just blackness on the deck
yeah.
board.
I think that was in the description, and it just made such a perfect contrast. It's kind of like a center point of the whole deck in that way, because we put a lot of details in. We wanted this in the background, and we wanted, Mardi Gras and
Yeah,
Chinatown and
yeah,
cities and vistas. So yeah, I love this black background too. I think it's
yeah.
perfect, like center point.
Very cool. Now here's a kind of a wild one. To my mind, there's always sorry, especially if people don't know, the a big inspiration for this deck was Margot Adler wrote Vampires Are Us. She's a very important pagan author,
Hmm.
and she read hundreds and hundreds of vampire novels and formed the thesis of the moral vampire, which is a reflection of modern humans in that they are a powerful being who knows they are dangerous, just trying to be moral. So this is that our idea of a vampire trying to overcome their need for blood using alchemy, and alchemy has always been, well, has long been an association for the temperance card. One fun little thing for me, I remember trying to think like, well, how is this one different? How does it keep it looking different from the cups? How do we do it? And I think I remember looking up like maybe or writing maybe she's got a Greek crotter vase, and then maybe
Hmm.
on it, I don't know, red figure Artemis hunting a deer, and I just like put these little details like maybe that, and then I want to saw the card, I'm like, oh, poor Craig. Not only is there a crotter, there's a red figure Artemis hunting a deer with the crescent moon. I was like, because I just get to like write these little notes, and then you have to go out and find like the inspiration and
Yeah,
make
I think
this.
this one you were even apologetic about it. You're like, can you be there? Do you mind? I was like, but once a detail gets mentioned, I've got to do it. I got to put
Yeah.
it
And I
in.
love the steam, which is that fire and water atmosphere that you've given to the
Oh,
card, and like
thanks. Yeah,
the
I thought that was great.
distillation.
Yeah, yeah. What's cool is, yeah, I wanted it for that. Um, it was a layer, that she could be inside of, but it's also kind of the wings of the angel.
Yeah,
Not that we have an angel, and she's got a halo over her head that's
she does
just
have a halo. I love it.
so we snuck it in there.
Her necklace has the alchemical symbol of fire, which you got.
Yes.
Yeah, and then but also the gold and silver on the bracelets are
Yeah,
there.
and another element I was thinking, and it's in her hair, and
Mhm.
all her jewelry are chains. So that was the whole, like
Oh
she more
yes,
stuck being a vampire
yeah,
than happily being a
the
vampire.
reluctant.
So yeah, I made all, like everything on her is chains.
I also love because we've been talking about their physiques. You made her very emaciated feeling. Okay, for this, obviously she looks gorgeous, but like compared to other vampires, like, and also the pose of these arms kind of drives home how thin she is, and she's pale, so it's, I mean, obviously a lot of vampires are pale, but it's, she looks a little bit like she's not eating as well as the rest of the other vampires, which is intentional.
Yeah, yeah. We certainly wouldn't want to overdo that or emphasize anything like that, but for her, yeah, a little almost a struggling pose in a weird
Yeah.
way. And
Um,
a little thin, yeah.
cool. And then so this, okay, I remember at some point working on the cards, sending a note and saying, like, is there anything you feel isn't in here? And I remember your note was that we've got these beautiful, modern vampires that all look like they could walk in society. I think we need more monsters. And so a couple cards changed. This one, I think the Hangman maybe, and then the Nine of Swords to be more monstrous. And I love, originally, I think I'd written a very unsubtle idea that the one painting that exists of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler.
Mm.
I was like, maybe what if he was alive today, but like kind of rock star motorcycle gang with that ridiculous mustache. So this idea was gonna be like he's Vlad the Impaler and he's still alive. And yeah, really glad we tossed that idea out because this is so much cooler as the demonic or like ancient vampire lord who's like fully gone to the dark side, and this is this otherworldly being with these crazy fangs. And
Yeah, the bat, once I started like weaving together bat details while thinking of the devil, it really became fun shapes in his face. And I said,
yeah, like the bat ear shapes, like forming these
yeah,
horns, so cool. He's got like basically three sets of ears, and that's I'm for it. And
yeah,
also like the snub nosed vampire bat
yeah. I
nose
thought
you
that was
got
a
on
great part.
there.
Yeah, yeah. I thought he needed that. I see now that he retained a bit of a mustache, though. So
Like
that
it's
original
sort of
idea is
there,
there.
sort of there, sort of there. No, he's got the leather. Everyone's got leather pants. It's great. And and also the idea, like, so replacing the chains of the Rider Waite Smith with the idea. I think a lot of fiction people understand that if a vampire gives you its blood, it has power over you. So there's the idea that like they could close their mouths if they wanted to, but here we are. I love
Yeah.
the feet, by the way. I didn't notice that the first until like I had the deck in my hands. I was like, oh, these are
Oh,
so
okay.
cool, these bat
Yeah.
feet. I
Yeah.
also want to talk about this back. So I think I'd written something weird, like he had like a St. Andrew's cross or something like that in the background. I don't know what. I was like, oh, devil imagery. That would have been really inappropriate. But this looks like hell back here, like the way that the wood is now like it, at the at that state. What do we call it? Where it's
Yeah. Just that yeah, just fully burning, turning to ash, but
yeah,
still a flame. Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's
like
hell, all right. It's a 70s fire pit.
yeah. Oh, that's okay. I wonder. So what? He's really worried about heating in his lair. So he has this incredible device. It just looked like sometimes like doesn't matter why it's there, it just looks freaking cool. And I love how the wings are translucent. You could see it
Yeah.
behind him. Incredible job on the wings.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
And then also his hands being like just yeah, like they're a little more bestial. Anyway, good stuff. So we get to the tower, something that did not go through very many changes. I think it was like always like it's a New Orleans, like a Louisiana plantation home, and it's on fire, and there's people.
Yeah. Fun because that's such a great gothic image, or just or modern vampire, just
Yeah,
they're still gonna have these old things and they're still gonna, maybe they've been there ever since it was built, but
yeah,
the details of this and the old time quality, and then throw in the branches,
oh yeah,
twisting.
yeah,
Another example of our, we have to do night. We can't make night black. Night
yeah,
has so much more. So even though there's no vampires in this picture, like the sky is alive with a lot of detail,
yeah.
just to
And
give it all that.
I remember asking Barbara, like, should there be two little bats flying away that suggest they got out? And she's like, no, no, it's a much more powerful image if you don't know if they got out. If it's for the person when you draw this card, the tarot is telling you maybe get out. So something to think
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I remember you mentioning that, and yeah, you pulled back on that.
yeah. I'm glad we did. It's a better image without the like, oh, they got away. Great. It's all fine. Um, This okay, she gives me, I don't think this was a note of mine. She just gives me like Eva Green in Penny Dreadful in like the best way.
Oh,
The
cool,
star
cool.
card, and I remember this is a little bit, there's a moment in a couple things have done it. True Blood did it when Tara becomes a vampire, and like when she looks at the stars, they're just unlike how we see them. The stars to vampire, they have telescopic vision in a lot of versions. So the idea that they would see
Yeah.
them perfectly. And then Midnight Mass, I noticed that the stars shimmer. So this idea of creating like an image where she's levitating and seeing the stars, and I just love the wind that's happening, and there's no blood or violence or anything demonic in the card. It's just her having a great time. But is there anything you want to say about this
No,
one?
I loved that idea. I absolutely love the idea that, and I think because it, I was probably echoing back to like a Poppy Z Bright novel I read, and it just the world is just psychedelic for vampires. Like
Yeah,
there's, you, it's fine to say, well, they have heightened senses,
yeah,
they perceive more, but we wanted to just bring that alive, and yeah. So your whole description for this, I loved because
yeah,
yeah, I assume vampires see the stars like this,
yeah. And how ecstatic
and
she looks.
especially if they're in some, like awakening moment or the first moment or
Hmm.
first time they fly, whatever it is, it can be all of those things, I think.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And also, I think we talked about this in the beginning. Like, there's a moment in a vampire fiction, usually where a character has to say something like, "Oh, well, we can't turn into mist, or we don't turn into bats. That's ridiculous." And that
Mm.
makes sense when you're writing a novel and you have to sort of give limitations to your monsters. But
Oh yeah,
when you're writing
yeah,
a tarot deck, you don't have to. And you and I both have sort of a background in Vampire the Masquerade, where like not necessarily every vampire is going to have every ability, but different vampires will have different abilities. So I like that in this deck, there's different ways that vampires fly. There's different ways that vampires interact with mirrors. There's the different
yeah.
manifestations of their powers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there was, it wasn't just clans in the Masquerade. It was sort of sects and philosophies,
Yeah.
and just yeah, it went deep. Each group.
Mhm.
So yeah, them manifesting in different ways just made a lot of sense. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it made sense for the deck too. Yeah, yeah. I'm
And then
glad you incorporated all that.
And for the moon, we wanted to go a little international. So there's different around the world, there's different ideas about vampiric creatures. And one of them is from Slavic lore, the Rusalka. The Rusalka is a drowned woman who lures people to their death. And it's important for me to include because I learned about tarot cards from the computer game from 1992, Quest for Glory, Shadows of Darkness. And
Oh,
in it,
fantastic.
the Rusalka figure is either beautiful or later when she's going to be cured, she's has this sort of skeletal monstrous self. So I was inspired by that, and also the moon being illusions. Um, I thought it would be cool to have the moon not be in the sky. We've got a lot of moons in this deck, and so having
Yeah,
it be in the water, and then just the idea that like she's presenting one thing, but like there's a different story
yeah,
going on. And I think you
yeah.
did an incredible job of, it's subtle enough that like first you say okay naked woman, and then it takes a moment to be like, oh wait, what's going on down here? Maybe don't get in the water, or maybe do.
Yeah, I've been, I've just been watching a few of the deck reviews and stuff, or just bits and pieces of them, and I just love that half the people see it and half the people don't. So she'll get victims
So
still.
yeah, that's why Rizalkas do so well. We're
Because
just missing it.
some people dig straight in and say, "But if you look here," but half the people don't, and I think that's perfect.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I think I'll say about the Rizalka. I think it's great. Um,
I did like
for
putting the moon in the water. Yeah, I thought that was great.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's really cool. And then the cattails, and then the way that
yeah,
the ripple effect is just so mysterious and lunar, and I love it. And also the way that like it's the light on her hair. It's just so good. Anyway,
yeah. She popped out pretty well there. I like it. I like that our star, moon, and sun, which is coming right up,
there's the sun.
are yeah, kind of special. I think some people are looking at them going, it's a little different. I love that we have them different and so vampire
Yeah,
oriented.
yeah. So this seems like a controversial card from the reviews that I've seen, and I think some
Yeah, yeah,
people
it does,
felt,
doesn't it?
yeah, some people felt that it, okay, here's one critique that I think is fair. I still like what we did with it, but the feeling that it visually is close to the tower, and perhaps a person might be forgiven for thinking it's the tower. And
Mm,
I hear that, but I stand by the choice. But in a vampire deck, the sun, um, I've seen certain vampire decks where the sun looks like it's like burning of it, like it's the focus is on a vampire.
yeah,
So and it's burning them, and that's not the sun is a great card of like happiness and joy. So in this deck, the focus is on the idea of, for the human being, he got out, he's free, he's
yeah,
safe, it's all good. The sun card is like it's all good. You're like it's things are great. And it's that moment in a vampire movie where like he was seconds away from being lunch and now he
yeah.
is free. And I love how you did that. I remember like this is another one of the ones where I was like, it's easy for me to say like, oh, you see like hands reaching out of the window or something like that, but
Mm.
I love that you put the full vampire and how they're on fire in there, and we're getting that scene. And also I love the energy of his like all of the tension in his body.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah. He's like he is fighting him, but got he must have been jumping backwards. Yeah.
Yeah,
However he did it, he's out of there, but he's not quite done with the fight. I like that, he
yeah,
has a few more seconds of fight.
yeah.
This is
But
a
it's
good
probably gonna go
example.
okay.
This is a good example of we really it did need to be kind of horizontal. So maybe that's what gives it a little bit of a tower feel. Is like um yeah, maybe there is a little less on the bottom and a little less on the top. So I had to find a way to make them interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, the toughest thing about a sun is no matter what, you want to get out your yellow crayon and do a circle with three or four things coming
Yes.
out of it. Yeah, and I think I had to draw that on my computer just to get it out of my system.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, yeah, now I have to go completely the opposite. So I feel like I was pretty successful. That it's just bright. It's just
It's
bright.
well,
It's
yeah, because to a
gleaming. Yeah.
vampire, it's just gonna look like a blinding ball of
Yeah,
fire.
yeah. And
And
I said, you've got to pull that off.
it's so well implied to my mind. I don't know. I really love it. And I think that like, and you do get that like, especially because because you put it in a forest, like that's how light looks, it streams like that in a forest where you get
Yeah.
that those beams of light. And I think that works. And I don't know. I think that I get it. I get the question, but I stand behind the energy of this one and having the sun. Yeah, the way you put it, the star, moon, and sun being kind of
Our own,
unique.
yeah,
Your own
our own
take.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
So
And
he,
we were talking about influences a little. I
Mhm.
didn't even think about it, but the saxophone guy in Lost
Oh
Boys.
my God, is that him? Is he
I did
finally
not till after I was done. Not till after I was done, but I posted
that's that
them the other
oily
day.
saxophone player? Yeah, that movie's so weird and it shows up in one other card, but uh I
A
can see it
little
now.
touch of sax
I'm
player.
glad to know
A
that his
little.
evil has been put to an end. The saxophone guy. That is such a random scene. Like, why is everyone on the beach? Like, just here. Anyway,
Oh,
watch the
yeah.
movie.
Well, yeah.
This is the climax of the sort of one of the. There's still one more scene in it, but her journey of awakening to her power, and part of awakening to your power is taking it back from anyone who's oppressed you, from anyone who's tried to put you down and keep you asleep. And I just love the way that the light it is giving like redemption, and like the Armageddon kind of light from the lift energy from like the like, and you'd see in a Rider Waite Smith, but just like
Mm,
how it's coming at her. And also I love that she's more monster in this version of herself. We'll see
yeah,
her
yeah.
again, but this is her being a little more monster. So
This
sorry.
was obviously this is the majors, so this is how we finished up, and this is very near the end. And this was one uh, card where I did everything, loved everything, and I was like, is her face right? Like I didn't have time for no confidence on all the
Mhm.
other cards, and I didn't have time for no confidence on this one, but I just said, is her face right? Is her face right? So Yeah, I hope that that works, and I hope people see this is her moment of like all her vampiric strength
Yeah,
to uh to get this guy at the last chance.
yeah. And I think to my mind, it's good that her face is a little uncomfortable. It's this moment of waking, and like the way her eyebrows kind of arch, just showing her will. And we've got the Scooby Gang here, but it's just
Yeah,
the focus on her is so
yeah,
great. All right. And then so it's funny, I look back at I've done like a little like historical look at like all of the different ways the world has been represented, and pretty much in every freaking deck that there is, it's a woman dancing at the center, of this with the
yeah,
wheel and holding the two wands. It's a pretty universal. And even I like that you worked in the scarf, like because usually we
yeah.
got that so wacky. So where I work in San Francisco, I'm near the there oh gosh, is it like Union Square? There's this tower, a statue of Nike. It's this
Yeah.
pillar. And I just like thinking like that's kind of like a in the city like a world image. And I remember sending that to you and you liked it, and you worked with that. And I didn't realize until later that you'd put it in the magician. Love those boots, by the way. Those are great
Oh yeah.
boots. And then also I love that for those looking, yes, the four angels are
Yeah, they're
there.
all they're
They're
all
all
there.
there. Tarot people, calm down. And then the zodiac is here,
Yeah.
and I think that I think that actually is the hotel that is right there.
Is it really?
But I
Okay.
think something like that. I know we
Little good
reference,
luck. Yeah.
but and I love so once and then the symbolism of the rose and lily kind of comes full circle, and the idea being that she is now, she is all vampires. She still has her mortal side, her soul. She has retained her soul, and she is more powerful for it. And I do love this necklace, the snake detail, which some of the
Yeah.
Thoth and other decks have the snake in the world card.
Yeah.
So I love that you included that.
Yeah, I loved the photo you sent and the statue, and it was hard to find good reference of it because every shot was like this up angle at
Yeah,
the
100 feet
statue.
away.
So I just kept hunting around. So I may have like incorporated a few other things for what she's
Sure.
standing on. Um, kept them a little darker, for our whole theme.
Yeah.
And here's our ultimate example of yeah, it's a bunch of vampires at night, but every excuse we had to have dawn or dusk or sunset or sunrise or lots of moonlight or lots of city lights, it all came together in this one.
I
Uh,
love it.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I posted it next to the pool the other day, and I also love that the pool is all green and this is all orange, and it's just a complete like transformation
It is
for
beautiful.
this character.
And I like that the sunset or sunrise, and this is one of the ones, it could be either, where, just implying that, it's a new day for her,
Yeah,
she has a new journey to begin. Like the world, it is a completion, it's also a new beginning. So the night is hers, the city is hers. That's kind of the vibe I got.
yeah, yeah. She's in complete. Like I don't know if people even see her up there. She's just like
Yeah.
so slick in this city now and so in control. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's our character come all the way around.
And so that is the major arcana. All right, now that takes us to the minor arcana, and we're going to start with the suit of wands. So the aces in tarot are very primal energy. They're like the pure energy of their suit. And so I wanted to kind of get to some of the core powers of the vampires, in order to suggest that, and to suggest what the suit is about. So to my mind, wands is all about vitality, and so that implied sort of the blood magic aspect of vampires. So their blood is actually supernatural in and of itself. And this is another one where I was like, you can see like the glowing veins. And I remember like kind of thinking I was just gonna get like you were gonna do like little lines, and like, no, you clearly studied anatomy and where the veins are in the body, and where they travel up around us and how they look. And so I think that was incredible. And also having that, because in tarot there's usually like clouds on the aces, and I like the way you did that here. But how did you get this effect?
Yeah, that's, there were so many things that, thanks for the compliments. There's so many things in this deck where I was like, what do
How do I do this?
how do I do this? But then you start playing with the shapes, and you just, you know, once I saw sort of the mirror image of how the veins go off into the body, which is of course not a perfect mirror image, it's all biological. And just started drawing some of those shapes just in black lines, and then putting them behind the ankh. And I just said, oh, okay, okay. So as long as these shapes sort of interact, like they're on top of the body and behind the ankh, it can look really, really interesting. Um, then it was just about the glow. So yeah, yeah, they are glowing lines, and it's just as long as they're in a sort of bed of softer light, then it gives you the whole thing. It gives you the veins themselves and the arteries themselves, and
Yeah.
the glow, and the glow through the skin, and the glow on the skin. Yeah, so keeping it soft as it faded from the core there was
Yeah.
just little tricks.
And I like that, yeah, it's so it doesn't, they're not all glowing the same level. It's sort of like clearly starting where the wand is, and then it, fades as it goes through her body. So, and look at the lip gloss, like just such a cool effect on, and then there's that little fang.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we did it for 90% of them. It's just like,
Yeah. And it's
oh,
just like this, like
yeah.
there's something with her teeth, but love that. So this, I think the first way back there's a deck called the Fey Tarot by Ricardo over at Los Scarabeo, and he had the idea of like a little fairy creature afraid to leave the nest. And I really like that idea of the Two of Wands. It's like probably my favorite card in the tarot. And so I wanted to ratchet that up 1,000. And so the
Yeah.
idea of I was like so excited for this card to like just look great. And we'll get to the insanity with the wings in a second. But just the when I saw the art for this, like my stomach dropped a little bit. Like you feel like you're out on this ledge, right? About to, like just
Yeah.
that sense is what it should feel like. And I like the where you place the camera in, proverbially in this
Uh,
image, because it
yeah.
is like we're about to go off the ledge with this guy. And then before we get again to the insanity of the wings, just if you have if a 10-year-old or I has to draw a building in the city, we make a rectangle and we put like 8 little windows in it, right? And we make those yellow. And you have to draw all of these buildings over and over again in this universe. What's that like?
Yeah, yeah, city, so challenging. And you just have to find uh, details that you can include without them being the subject matter. So
Yeah.
it's tough. I remember talking, like I go to conventions. I go mostly to see the art show, and looking at, hearing friends who are artists talking about like the master illustrators hanging up in front of us. And I just remember a guy talking about, I think it was a Michael Whalen painting, and just
No.
saying, there's just as much detail here. And he's pointing at some random background spot. He just controls it with tone, he controls it with color. And I said, okay, but if it's a city, you have to do that.
That you did a great
Um,
job. So this
Thank you.
light,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah. This one has some crazy perspective, but I think it fits his state of mind. If
Yeah,
perspective
that's
is a little
looming.
wild, yeah, yeah,
And because it's the beginning, so okay, this is an insane idea that I had, which was that the twos should pay off in the tens. I for me, the twos in tarot are the desire for the suit element. So here,
yeah,
the desire for power, and we'll see how that works out in the tens. But we had to like this has to be like the beginning of his journey. Like I kind of get the vibe that he's trying this for the first time and really hoping it goes well. And okay, so I apologize to you. I remember writing like, how are we going to imply where the because like okay, in a medieval looking tarot deck where people just have 7 wands or 6 swords on them, like
yeah,
it's just easy, but where do you put the wands? So I had this idea of like the ankh becoming crackling lightning. And I even I took I tried to sketch what I thought I meant. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just shut the heck up and sit back. This is how one does the Ankh
Yeah,
wings.
you had three like really great ideas that they manifested this energy, which seemed so cool for this suit, and that they had these they would sometimes be holding the ankhs, but sometimes they'd have these energetic ankhs, and they had the crackling, powerful
Yeah,
aspect of the energy.
let's look at that.
So three great ideas that I had no idea how to fit together
Jeez.
until we just dove in and started kept sketching them, and um, finding that best place for them, So if they're structurally part of those wings, it ended up working out.
Awesome.
I hope
So
people
this, oh,
agree.
sorry. This card, this is another one I always see reviewers pause on because there's this okay, I've heard many times that the Three of Wands card is usually so boring because usually just looks like the Two of Wands. And
Mhm.
this is not a criticism of Pamela Coleman Smith or anyone else. I'm not coming for them, but just how else do you do this? And so, to my mind, the wands being the will of the vampires and the magic. And this is also a great example of there's just something about her teeth, right? That you're like, "Oh, something's off there."
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
the way that this is designed. So, a couple favorite things about this. One, I remember say I tried to figure out what does she look like, and I wrote like kind of a Lana Turner type or something like that, and like we
Mm,
came up with what a modern Lana Turner, type in because I think for casting directors are always being told, I need like a young Adrienne Barbeau,
yeah.
and and they you found a character who looks like Lana. It's not her, and I love that. And also, this is another Craig putting the tarot element in the idea of the Egyptian style boat because the Three of Wands often has a boat, and I've seen people comment on that. And I love this incense, and then just this really cool, like almost like cartoon like effect of it's like almost like the fingers of the smoke like drawing
Yeah, you can
her
almost see
prey.
you can see a Warner Brothers cartoon, little fingers there.
Yeah, I love it, and I love everyone's like everyone's in their pajamas, which is it's like you have to keep that interesting with the outfit. So, real cool card. This is my favorite card in the whole deck, probably. And this really was when I was like, okay, this is the other one where I was like, what do I mean? So this is actually based on, of all things, Christopher Moore, Blood-Sucking Fiends. There's a moment where Jodie the vampire, who's just freaking out, she's a vampire, she doesn't know what it means, she doesn't know what's going on. She has a moment where she kind of realizes she has power, and that from that moment on, she never regrets being a vampire. And so to me, it's just like this, like the moment of the world is mine. And like also when you're young and hot and at a club, that's what it feels like as well. The world is mine.
Mm,
And also suggesting that so often in vampire fiction, like there's the vampires can hear heartbeats and pulse and the thumpa thumpa. So like suggesting the thumpa 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 cloud, like it's like club music as heartbeats was what I was looking for.
yeah,
But
okay.
then I didn't know how to do that visually. And again, I was thinking horizontal. And then you did this cage with the wands, which I think was you. And this is a real club. Is this the Limelight?
It definitely has a lot of limelight elements. Yeah, I mean I think you could find a place back in the day to stand in the limelight and it would look a
Yeah.
lot like this, except for the cage.
Yes. And I felt for you. I think I was like, maybe there's like two people. And you created this like huge, all of these people with the hearts. And then if you really, these are all different people. And I just I pray for you, Craig. Like these are, this guy is different from this guy. There's no
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
like, which you don't have the same face problem that some other tarot artists have had. But
No, no, you can't let it
that guy's
happen.
like the office guy. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah,
How do
he looks a
you do
little
that?
trapped in the club there. I think we had some up angles
Hmm.
and a couple up angles and a couple down angles. I wasn't always able to do four sketches, but yeah, and I think there were some good things about the up angles, and they weren't just dodging the crowd, although I thought it would be a little less work
I had a
to
real
have an
hard,
up
oh
angle.
God.
Yeah,
Oh
but
yeah.
this allowed us to see all the sea of hearts,
Mhm.
So yeah, it's another tall composition. So I suppose the two figures in the foreground are sort of tilting in rather dramatically. But
Yeah, that's
other than
as one
that, I think
would.
it's a good yeah, I think it's a good scene that works, and then the trick was to just the right amount of hearts in the crowd,
Yeah, it's not over the top.
obviously. Yeah, yeah. So and it was very difficult and hard to do that whole crowd, and hard to do beams of light on top of the crowd. And I just said, "Oh man, you may have just tried too much." And people love this card, and
Love this card.
it's such a success. And I think it's a lot of people's favorite. So, uh,
Yeah.
so
When they
thanks
asked
for
me like what ones should be on the box, I wanted this one to be on the box somewhere. And it's the spine, I believe, of the box is
yeah,
her.
yeah,
It's also a really good version of like her teeth are out and it doesn't look like she's snarling. It just kind of makes sense. Yeah, this
yeah.
was a real hard one. Like so I for most of these cards I got to see like 3 or 4 thumbnails, and they're all, of course, for the most part, could be what we chose, but I had such a hard time choosing this one. And I'm an indecisive person, which is why I read tarot cards. And this is good. So anyway, I also, and just the cage and all of it, and also just anyway, okay, I gotta move on. Okay, this this is one of those I remember like putting so many random little thoughts in the thing, including like maybe the billboard up on this has some like kind of smiley image to like to contrast
Yeah,
with what's going on,
yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe it's got food, and like there it is. Craig did everything that was on the list, and I love that it's, are they fighting? Are they working out? There's a lot of like workout gear here, but I love it.
Yeah, yeah, fun to get the 5 wands, more, more of that. Just have fun with diagonals. If you need to show that many elements,
Yeah,
just sort of click them together until they look like a great like bouncing action thing.
yeah, and I like that the
Um,
chaos back there. There's like both of the scenes like get the right amount of attention. I don't know what I mean by that because I'm not an artist, but like
oh, good, good. Oh, I'm
this
glad.
this is
Yeah.
like the dramatic thing, but also there's this going on here, and because fives okay, visually for me, fives are usually a little chaotic because that you can't make them all match up, and so having
Mm.
like this is pretty cool.
And
What else is there to say about this one? There's probably a lot.
just one more night
Mhm.
scene drenched in light.
This is a very bright city. I also, okay, I do remember this. I remember being like, well, how do you this to me, this like this the way she's floating in space but has that like modern action movie like sense of control. I remember sending you like, I feel like karate videos of people fighting with staffs and like the
Mm,
things people are
mhm.
spinning, and like one of them I think was like Darth Maul. And gives this guy
Yeah.
gives me Darth Maul energy, I will say.
Yeah, yeah. He's
Well,
probably, yeah, that's probably where a little of his energy comes from, is
yeah,
that great scene. And then yeah, she had to be taking it one step farther up into
yeah.
the third dimension there. Yeah.
And then from that, this scene, so much light, so much color. I remember like thinking, like, I think I wrote like a dingy city street, and like this is not that. I'm so excited by this is not that. And also, um, I love that you chose the like Japanese like I can't remember what they're called, but they're like gangs based on like the 1950s. They
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that aesthetic.
The
Like
50s guys.
yeah,
Definitely impressed by this new gang,
yeah,
walking down the street in front of them. And a little rude probably, but without going over the top on those guys. Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm a fan, and then also, but also like they seem to be into it, which I think is the vibe of this card. And so the inspiration for this is a little bit taken from The Craft when they're walking down the hallway, and the idea of just like, to me, the Six of Wands is we're powerful, we're rising up, people are, all eyes on us, and I kind of love that energy. But I remember so when throughout throughout this whole deck process, I know Craig and I like spent a lot of time being concerned about how things will be interpreted, because you can create something and intend for it to be one way, and so especially when people are different races, when things of different sexualities, and wanting that to all be like sensitively taken. And I remember that one of the first times anyone showed any of the art on the internet, this is one of the cards, and one of the first comments is like, this is sexualizing teenage girls and the girl uniforms. And I remember being like, I did not have that on my cancellation bingo card. I didn't think this would
Oh
be I
God.
didn't think this is the image that was going to get us in trouble. And luckily it didn't. It was just
Oh,
that person.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, I didn't see any of that go by. I think people. Yeah, that's too bad because, well, first of all, I guess they are. Well, it's hard to say when they're vampires, right? But
Yeah,
the youthful gang and in appearance anyway. That it's almost a style, really.
yeah,
Just like the guys have their own style in the back,
yeah. But
and we tried a few different style.
mhm,
Clearly it's their fashion choice because they're not from the same school.
yeah, yeah. And also I remember a choice early on was that, okay, well, if we're setting it in this neighborhood, like Japantown or something like that, then the lead vampire should be Asian, so it doesn't look like they're just rolling through other like another racist neighborhood and like taking over. So I think that we did make that choice intentionally, and she looks freaking awesome. And I know lots of girls who dress kind of like that, and they're pretty powerful. So anyway,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so then we have this one. I like the idea of the leap of faith. There's a bunch of ways to do the Seven of Wands. Either the person fighting against the multitude or the leap of faith, and this
Hmm.
combines both of them. And I think was her pose, was that a ballet dancer that inspired that?
Yeah, I mean, I needed some kind of more than just a jump,
Yeah,
like a really powerful leap. So of course you have to look towards, the great athletes for that and ballerinas are, I think.
yeah,
So yeah, and I'm sure it's a combination of two or three or five different um people,
yeah,
getting the best components together there and blending them
yeah.
in.
But I love how it's not just like for some reason tonight. I mean, maybe they're the vampires seeing like we're seeing like this like almost like a nebula in the background in the sky. So it's not just a black sky and like there's certain
Yeah.
stars. And I also love I think people might notice there like this deck takes place in many locations. So some of the city shots really feel like London to me. This one is definitely New Orleans.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the garden, not the garden district, downtown New Orleans. To me, this is like the terraces and whatnot.
Yeah, what is she at? I was imagining her escaping from off the terrace, so why not
Yeah,
some of the cooler terraces in the United States?
very cool. So this is another favorite for me. I guess I love the one suits, and I remember I get like a Neil Gaiman vibe from this image, like a Neil Gaiman
Okay.
character turning into bats. But also, okay, so the bat thing, it's iconic for vampires, of course, and but it's sometimes it's just so much more interesting when the vampire will turn into like a flock of bats all at once. And so that
Mhm.
was a way to have eight of something. I know in the beginning there was a question of whether there'd be like eight onks flying around, and like no, we get it. Like there's the eight, they're the ones. Calm down. So I love this
Oh yeah, yeah,
image
yeah.
so much, and this
Oh,
like character.
I'm glad you like it. I totally agree. Like it's so much more alien and monstrous to turn into a bunch of bats or a flock of bats. It's just such a great image in vampire stuff. If they turn into one, then that's just still them, and now they're just smaller. But when they turn into this giant flock, a
Yeah,
powerful image, I think. Yeah,
yeah. And what else is it? Just also the it's amazing to me like the number of people who are like, well, I don't know what's going his head's exploding. I'm like, come on now, calm down. You've never heard of vampires turning to which is not a criticism. It is a criticism. I'm criticizing these people. But no, I also love this like you put this like carpet in the room that he's leaving. He's
yeah,
like leaving the manse,
yeah, yeah. I didn't want just all. Yeah, he didn't just have a marble floor in there.
he's a well-to-do kind of
First.
guy. Look at that
Yeah.
jacket. Yeah.
Now, would you have what do you think his clothes should have been falling apart a tiny bit more?
No, I just love the like he's got kind of like an Ichabod Crane kind of look. And I think that um I think it just makes more sense with this, where he's like he's completely in control. There's so many things that if you think about with like shape shifting, like how would that work? But I think it's just more fun to have it be this energy. It just is more of a character to me. But I don't know. Was that something you were wondering about whether or not they should be collapsing?
I think that we may have just discussed it briefly or
Yeah.
something, but yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah. No, it's so cool. And it has more like a sprightly energy if it's like all moving forward. So
yeah. I just imagine his entire suit like falling into place on the ground and he flies off. Yeah.
yeah. So the nines, I think there's like maybe a mini theme in the nines of like it's not just the vampires, but or at least the one of them. But this is like the idea of the human beings just having to survive the night. The Sometimes in like a survival horror, we have the final girl. I'm assuming she's our final girl, and she's
Yeah.
already like so messed up, and she's had these altercations. I think these are the only crosses that appear in the deck or in this card, and I love that it's sunset and it's going to be a long night ahead, and it's just like,
Yeah.
because the Nine of Wands has this vibe of like, you just got to hold out. It's almost there, but you have to like stick to your guns.
Yeah. This was another one where it's like, well, she's at the door and there's all the wands are there and the crosses are there and they're nailed into place and she's got a hammer and it's sunset, you know, composing it all was like, wow, okay, I want to show all those things. And yeah, it's just fun when you get it together. I'm glad. I'm glad that pops. You know, that little bit of sunset back there,
Yeah,
because that's her story, right? Yeah,
yeah,
I love that she's looking out there and
yeah.
going, okay, we can do this, but it's it's
It's
not
just
going to
going to
be
be a
easy.
long night.
Yeah,
Yeah, I apologize now for all the weird things, some of these weird ideas, but I will say that
not well.
this
They're
is,
not weird though. It's
yeah,
just it.
I
I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad they're so weird and hard, you know, because once you compose it and get it
and you did
together,
it. You
you're
totally
happy
did
with
it.
it. Yeah.
I will say also, this is one of the ones where I was like, what could 8 planks of wood be the wands? Why would she be like nailing wands? And then I think I'm talking to Barb, like, it's a tarot deck. There's 9 wands. Like, people are used to seeing
Yeah.
them. Like, no one's questioning that. They're getting the energy of the scene and the
Right.
character and the
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I never minded that. I never minded
yeah,
that. I always saw the symbols as like, yeah,
yeah.
they're there. You know, they're woven
So as I mentioned, the tens tell the story of like what is paid off in the twos, and our vampire mage is much more powerful now. Instead of two wand wings, he's got this. I didn't know. I remember, like, I don't know how we were gonna say more Ankh wings, but I love what you did where it's like this fluttering effect, like that he's flying with
in. Yeah. Yeah. I think we just wanted his wings to be built of 10 wands. And I was like, oh, the wands are going to be kind of all higgledy piggledy everywhere.
Yeah,
It just, and once I imagined that echo in shape, I thought that could work. That could really do it.
yeah. I remember the reference illustration I sent over for this one was something you and I both love, which is the Ray Bradbury Halloween tree.
Mm,
This is the
yeah.
mound shroud flying through the night with his wings, like his like vampire wings.
Yeah. It was such a beautiful illustration you sent. And yeah, just a little hint of it like transliterates over to this one.
Yeah, we're just taking a
Yeah.
reference.
Yeah. It was a great reference
So
idea. Yeah.
I was watching a video where someone was talking about the deck, and they were saying it's a very heteronormative, and of course they were only looking at random cards like as they're going, and they did a lovely job. This is not a criticism of them, but I do remember they had this card and the Queen of Cups in a spread that they did, and then they
Mm.
put, which is a woman situation that's very intimate, and this is a very intimate moment. And then afterwards they're like, yeah, this deck is heteronormative. I'm like, no, there's really clear storytelling going on, but maybe we're
Yeah.
not interpreting it as romantic because we're not trained to see it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Give it a little closer look. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it's got
we have
going on.
yeah, we've got all kinds of relationships going on with this deck.
Yeah. So here we have my good friend Benabel Wen, who's a very
Yeah.
an inspiration to me in the tarot. Being she, of course, is a very knowledgeable practitioner of magic and is really
Hmm.
into really some hermetic, sorry, like the more esoteric, not hermetic. Well, yes, hermetic, but the more esoteric stuff. And I just imagined young Benabel. So this isn't just Benabel. This is I'm like, Benabel, send me a picture of when you were 20 to inspire this character. And Craig created a character inspired by her. But like the idea of like, this is like when you're a teenager and you're like studying magic, you're
Yeah.
just you're working with forces outside of your own, but she's still handling it. But the one
Yeah.
other thing I want to talk about is I had this bizarre idea that the moon phases were going to show people the page, knight, queen, and king, and so all of the pages have a crescent moon on them, a waxing crescent. Well, that's a
Yeah.
great thing. That's a great thing to write. but then you have to figure out where it's going to be on every card. And then this card is so full of energy. So I love that you have it on her spell book.
Yeah, we snuck it into her spell book there. It could have been in the sky, but it just would have taken away from that, like just what you were saying. Like,
Hmm.
okay, she's tapped into this energy. She's not focusing it very well yet, but she's just a page, and it's all it's all starting to happen. I just
Hmm.
feel like the moon up there would have maybe distracted from that
Yeah. And
explosion up
something
there.
else I love is the use of color to sell the energy of this. Just I think this reminds me of how like in Magic the Gathering, the art has to show like all of this powerful energy, but using like not maybe the not just like red and orange and yellow and things like that, like
Yeah.
the purple like and the like pink that you have going on in that just
Yeah,
seems so cool to me.
that was a fun because this we had established red for the energy and the wings and I just said in this one it needs to be a little more chaotic. So exactly. Let's not fade it to orange. Let's fade it the other direction to
Yeah,
magenta, and it worked out pretty well because then
love it.
she can pop out.
Yeah,
You
so cool. So the vampire rocker thing, I knew we had to have one somewhere, and I feel like the way that the Knight of Wands is described by a lot of tarot readers today is that sort of I can't I'd have to swear to describe it here, but it rhymes with duck. Boy of the tarot
Oh,
is,
okay,
and I
okay.
love that you've got so that is an energy that is ascribed to this Knight of Wands, and I love that. So we that shows up in vampire fiction as either Lestat or Tom Hiddleston's character in Only Lovers Left Alive of like the
Oh
rock
yeah,
and roll vampire. So I love that there's the new so the salamander. If you're a
yeah.
Rider Waite Smith, he's got his salamander. That was totally a Craig. I didn't think of that. I'm not that smart. But the pyro, we wanted to show like the pyro energy because we don't put our knights on horses, and I remember at one point discussing whether or not they should all be motorcycles, but that's just so boring and samey. So I love that we did. You have the mic stand is the wand,
Yeah,
and there's that half moon.
yeah. I think we were. Yeah, we knew we wanted a wand in there, and you threw that out as an idea. I said, yeah, that can work perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's not. They all. Some people see it, they're like, "What are those wings of fire?" But I think if
If
they
they've
look,
been to a rock show,
yeah, I think if they look at the full card, they'll pick up on
they'll
it.
get it.
Some people are going by quick.
Yeah. But I also
Um,
like that when you're doing a reference, like it's sort of based on maybe inspired by those Rocco vampires, but it's not Lestat. It's a unique character. He's got this like lion's mane of hair, which is very onesie.
yeah, a little touch of 70s energy in this guy's style, but yeah, I thought that was a great idea for that night.
Right on. Here, this was actually the first card I got to see from the deck. I believe no, this in the Fool was the ones you sent
Yes,
in as a test.
the two samples, yeah.
I remember, so I got the big piece of art, and I mean like this dress is cool, and I just kept going further and further in, and I realized that every single bead on her 1920s cocktail dress is like several different circles of different colors to create
Yeah,
this
it's tricky. It's tricky.
shimmery effect. So
Sometimes detail can come out of just like blobby, you know,
mm,
I'm gonna scrub in some color here with the right with the right highlights, but sometimes detail comes from actual detail. So
yeah.
sometimes you just got to go in there.
Just go add dot by
Yeah.
dot. Also, this like so this is one of your test cards, and remember like we included it because it has animals in it because those are
Mm.
hard, and like you just crushed it with these two panthers that she's
Oh, thanks.
lounging with.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and somehow all the like the mood of her and them somehow, yeah, it all works together.
Love it. Love it. And then I also love like I remember like why are there it's my fault that they're like why are there tiki torches in this
Yeah,
I don't know, but they're freaking cool, and she they're very onesie, and it makes sense to me. So, and I also love just like the way it's not, this fringe, like the way it behaves at different parts of the leg, it's just such detail. And I was like, oh, we have to work with him, please, whatever it takes, let's just get Craig on board. So I love this
Yeah,
card.
yeah, it's weird when I think back on this piece because it was like, okay, I have a description, so I have an illustration to do, but this really is part of the deck, even though it was the first thing I had to do, I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, somehow it's working already.
So this is, well, like, look at the color contrast, boom, darkness.
Yeah.
So I love for this one, um I think we were pretty careful with not having Dracula overtly in the deck, and then when the kings are the last things, it's like, okay, I think we can reference Dracula. So this is definitely inspired by Jonathan Rhys Meyers in the ABC Dracula, but I love the red suit you gave him, and I
Yeah.
love so when the idea is like the King of Wands is charismatic, and so the idea of him like controlling his legions, and he's no longer alone, and just like this. So I remember like the idea of like the red light shared, and but you are the one who came up with the spark of his
Yeah,
snap.
somewhere, there, even as we got it all together and all this architecture and figuring out, how to make it look like there's so many people behind it. Yeah, there was still just one more thing needed. It's like, yeah, they have red glowing eyes. That's very horror movie.
Yeah,
And just yeah, his little snap was
yeah,
very connected.
very cool. So I love how full this this cup is. So the idea here, what I think started out is the vampires can turn into take different forms and become mist, and that's what's kind of swirling here. But really, like, you created this incredible chalice, and I remember thinking with the chalices and the wands, I was like, oh, does Craig have to keep drawing this over and over at this like degree of detail? So I think it's a really, really cool, the way the blood, I think it's hard to get, okay, like blood can just look like syrupy and disgusting, and like vampire
Yeah.
blood has to look very alive and mystical, and so I love this
Oh,
what
good.
you've done with it.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's first of all, reference for real blood splattered all over the place is hard to come by.
Yeah.
My blood was hard to come by, so I
Yeah,
kept it inside. But
good call.
yeah, yeah. So just don't make it too. I mean, in this one, it's quite clean, and there's a purpliness to that drop. So
Yeah,
maybe
could be
uh,
wine.
a little fresh or whatever.
Yeah,
But find ways to make sure it's
I've
not
seen some people
scrubbed.
think there's not enough blood in the deck, and I'm like, there, it's in there. Trust.
Yeah, just come to the Ace of Cups. Yeah,
Yeah.
funny for everyone.
So this is a great example of you switching the script in like the best way. So remember in the Two of Cups, it's the idea of, so in the Fool Lovers cards, we have the mortal and the vampire, and the idea of her becoming a vampire, and that's her journey. But there's also in vampire fiction the human and the vampire making it work, and the person not changing. That shows up a lot. So we wanted to tell that story here in the 2 and the 10. And I think I had it originally written in my mind that the vampire would look pensive, that she's afraid, and that he looks confident. And like, that's a stupid idea. Who's when you have a mortal and a vampire, who should be vulnerable? So I love that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
totally switched it. And just like the way his wrist looks, so like there's so much emphasis on his wrist
yeah.
is so cool. And I think that this is the right call, and like the way, like, what am I doing? What did I sign up for?
Yeah, if you look away from their faces, there should be, something else to look at. So that
Yeah,
hopefully those hands are like the story again,
yeah.
what's going on with them.
This is why AI will never replace us, because or replace you. They can replace me, but they can't replace you because they can't do hands. I also
Yeah,
love
they
that
can't do it.
you had the Two of Cups has that lion appearing with a caduceus and the
Yeah,
red,
yeah,
and so I love the inclusion here of that detail.
yeah.
All right. So
Um,
this there's so many references in here going on. So one, this is our take on the brides of Dracula, and they're literally wearing bridesmaids dresses, was the reference for that. But I wanted to, I think that, so the original 1929, 1932 Dracula, the brides look identical. And then in most versions since, there's a way of differentiating them. I'm thinking of like the Bram Stoker's Dracula with Monica Bellucci. They have different hair
Mm,
colors, or their dress is
yeah.
different, and there's more of like a move to have a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. But this is a diverse deck, and because modern vampire fiction is diverse, so I think we wanted to show different races coming together as in immortal glory here. Um,
Yeah, we had the specific idea.
and the original, I remember the original artwork. This is, I'm glad you didn't do this. It was, so I think it was like the Lost Boys, and I sent you like images of like Santa Cruz at night, and that would have been terrible. But I love that you kept the Ferris wheel, and then you set it at this beautiful like southern mansion, because it just sort of suggests that like a carnival is about to happen, and that means the food's about to arrive for our vampires, is one of my
Yeah,
interpretations.
yeah. We there was nothing wrong with the idea that it was carnival, but yeah, the pier wasn't quite
This is
happening.
so much cooler.
Yeah, with the luxury of them and their dresses, I just thought, oh, the whole fair is going on, in that gigantic front yard of this mansion. So
Yeah, much more vampire. And then
yeah,
this is the first nebula I remember seeing, being like, okay, that's cool. Yeah, because to the vampires, the stars are cool. And them clinking their glasses, and it's just a cool. And the bridesmaids' dresses feels a little cheeky, but I think that was a fun nod to Dracula.
yeah.
So this one, I remember at the beginning trying to figure out, okay, in the swords and cup suit, does it always have to be like, do they have to have chalices every single time? And then this was us playing for the first time with like, instead of the biohazard sign, the Vesca Piscis or is
Yeah,
appears there. I think that's how you pronounce it, or
yeah.
Piscis. But this to me was the, whenever vampires choose to give up drinking human blood for like taking victims, and they decide to live off plasma or bunnies or whatever, there's always a sense that that's not a very satisfying life.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what I wanted this card to show is that like the temptation. So obviously, yeah, in many decks, the fourth thing would be out here somewhere. That didn't really. I tried to think of how we would do that, but it's just the idea of like there's something else. And I remember a note was that like the maybe the drapes look like they're beckoning him to go outside, and I think you crushed that here.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. Another way to have that background sort of actually be a frame for him, and it brings him right out. Yeah, yeah. We didn't have the fourth thing out the window. I don't think you ever even mentioned that. Yeah, so
No,
it's
I
it's
tried to think of it. It's not necessary,
yeah.
and
So just put the moon out there. He clearly is ready to just like forget about this bag and
this is me looking at my
go back.
fridge and being like, I don't want anything in my fridge.
Yeah,
Actually, I
yeah,
need I need to go out and go to a restaurant because I can't stand it. Like it's a very human emotion. So this of the I think this was the third of the original cards you did. You did I was asked to request a major, a court card, and one of the minors. And I think this is one of the ones I had like the concept fully figured out, and the idea of the roses and the lilies. This is the first. Well, they appeared in the full card, but the idea of
Mhm.
like you can leave behind your mortality and join this new life.
Yeah. So this was a fun card because we put all the gothic imagery in there
Mhm.
with some gravestones and some trees and some down the sky. And a great time making these figures a little statued,
Yeah.
a little um their faces look perfectly fine except they're so stiff, and
Mhm.
but I thought that was a good thing. Like
Yeah.
she's a fresh young
She's
vampire.
a
Like
vampire. Yeah,
she's,
she's the new thing.
she's
Yeah.
minutes away from human, or just days. And they're a little deeper into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love
And
the touch of having like, apparently this family likes to go for the macabre and put skulls on their gravestones, which is a New England thing as far as I can tell.
yeah, oh, I had to use old-fashioned, uh, the most old-fashioned gravestones for those.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just the light. It was very difficult to do these lilies in the foreground until I started putting the moonlight hitting them, and then they just like I was like, oh, okay,
There we
this
go.
this one's fine. Yeah, this one's fine.
There's
Uh,
always mist in graveyards at night.
of course, yeah, it's rising up from all that grave
Let's go through here. Okay, all right.
dirt.
So I admit it. maybe I don't know. I stand by this one, but I know that not everyone is in love with the idea of this card. For me, the Six of Cups is always something childlike, and child vampires are creepy. Like you think of
Yeah.
Claudia in Vampire Chronicles. Like there's just
Mhm.
like the idea that you're trapping someone in a child's body for all of eternity. And it's not the same vibe as like cuteness that the Six of Cups, the lightness that Six of Cups suggests. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's two cards set in the day, the sun and this one, and like there's like the bright kitchen in contrast to everything else. And I actually had Count Chocula this morning. So this is I am a fan of that cereal, but and everyone gets it right away, like what's going on. And I just gotta
Yeah,
say,
I agree. I agree. Nobody looks at this and goes, "So I don't know what's going on here." Like they immediately either chuckle at it or at least just acknowledge, okay,
all right, we
it's
get
our
it.
vampire. Yeah,
We're
yeah,
pouring it. And then so I like also the idea that like in to them there's no vampires are cartoon characters, and so they don't know what's going on. Also, I get like a Chris Evans thing from him that I really enjoy
yeah.
as a fan, especially like the later movies, but with the beard. And I like there's like this wholesome bottle of milk. Like this deck is like full of blood, and this is a card that has like here's the milk.
Yeah. The only the only way you could put any creepiness into this card is, and it's barely, barely, barely there, is that it's daytime outside. They don't, and the light is bouncing around from the daytime. It doesn't seem to be any lights on inside here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm stretching on that one,
Sure, why not? You're allowed.
but
So we move to the seven. Take a drink of water. So the Seven of Cups, the idea of like the indecision or the moment of decision, I kind of like the idea of who do you want to be today as as a decision that could be a little more temporary. Like what do you want to do right now? Like you just have to decide something for right now. So
mm,
that's why the masks, and also like it's a nod to the Rider Waite where there are these heads and things, or like these different items appearing out of cups, but and I think these are funerary urns because we didn't know why there'd be cups with masks on them. So apparently there's funerary urns at the vampire ball, and I think that's a great design choice by vampires.
yeah.
And yeah, and I love the like seaside moment that's happening here. That this is like this interesting sea cave.
Yeah, I another yeah, just another example of that, like light at night. You know, in this one, she's got this difficult decision, but outside it's just the most beautiful night, the most
Yeah,
perfect full moon night. Um, I liked the way that framed her, so she could be dark. Um, and then, yeah, the masks, for the longest time, the masks were like, what? Got this dark cave, and it's all out here in this outside environment. Why is there all this glitter and stuff in here?
yeah,
Until it just all got put together, and
yeah.
then it worked. Then it worked for me. Yeah,
And I think we tried to match there's a wholeness to them. So there's a devil and an angel. There's like this, like these
yeah,
different kinds of things, so that they so some contrast, but also that it's not like a perfect system. It's just it's fun. I think someone did
yeah,
ask me like, "Oh, are these all
yeah.
the tarot cards? The Fool, the Death?" And I'm like, "Oh, I wish I thought of that." No, that's not what they are. There's no dragon in the majors. So
Just
this is a fun one, and I love her pose that you gave her. But also, like, let's just look at this chair for a second. This chair is bananas. The woodwork of that chair. It's
yeah.
pretty
I think
gothic.
I just grabbed on to, like, she has all this luxury of
Yeah,
these choices,
yeah,
but she doesn't care about that because of her situation. But
yeah.
the luxury kind of bled out into the whole scene in her chair and her desk and everything.
Yeah, this is a woman who cares about the aesthetics, and now, oops, that's gone. And playing with that, and then just like I actually like I enjoy showing people this card because it usually takes them a moment. They're like, okay, she's mad about, oh, she's not
Yeah.
there. I don't know. I enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, I like how it worked out. I like that she like if you don't figure out that her hand is not reflecting because it would be touching right there, there's also the chair in the
Yeah,
image. So yeah.
perfectly valid. Yeah. And sort of another like I think tarot decks can sometimes make difficult things I think the Eight of Cups decision to leave behind something that's very important is very difficult.
Mm,
And I think that it's usually like person like, oh, they're just turning around and walking away. And I think it's important. I like when decks emphasize how challenging this moment is. And for
yeah.
her, it's also this isn't even a choice. She can't follow that anymore. She's got to find a new thing to care about. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I like her chances. This is the card that changed the most from script to the final. I remember feeling like there needed to be a. So I have not read the Twilight books. I did see the movies once, and I rewatched the first one again when I was working on the script for the deck. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but sometimes the hatred people have for it seems like a little above and beyond. I will. That's my
Yeah.
point on
Yeah. Yeah.
Twilight, and I kind of thought, I guess there probably is an expectation of there being Twilight in the deck, and so I wrote a vampire prom scene, which actually, to my mind, comes more from
Oh yeah.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 3. She goes to the prom and Angel shows up, and so it was this moment of the vampire showing up at the prom, and I mean, I kind of like came to like that's too there's plenty of youth in the deck and there's plenty of like lightness in the deck. So the biggest about face you can do is a woman bathing in blood. So here we have okay, I think most vampire fans will be aware, but if you're not now, you will. Elizabeth Bathory is one of the great historical vampires. She was a real the Blood Countess. She was a real countess in, I believe, Transylvania or
Yeah.
Romania at least. And she was accused of bathing in the blood of virgins to remain young, and she was bricked up. Now, today we should think about that story and have some questions about for ourselves, like how likely was that? But it's a cool freaking
Mhm.
story, and
Yeah.
so the idea I was like, okay, no, what a vampire the Nine of Cups is like the wish card. What do you wish for? And I think the idea of like for a vampire, it's just a tub full of blood is the way to go. And
Yeah.
I love how unreal her hair, like, not unreal, but you know what I mean? Like how surreal and supernatural her hair seems to be
Yeah.
in this blood. She looks, it's got kind of like a ring energy or just this like that she's an otherworldly creature. So,
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. It's just if it was just sort of drooping in, it wouldn't quite give us the fantasy that she's
yeah.
living. Yeah.
I love I also like that she's kind of got a feral look about her that kind of I find striking as you know she's in blood. And again, this isn't. I think I was watching rewatching Penny Dreadful, and there's a scene where Helen McCrory is bathing in a bathtub full of blood, and it looks just disgusting because it looks like real blood. So she's just sitting in this syrupy black goo, and she puts out her cigarette, and it's a very cool scene. But I think I
Yeah.
like this is like vampire blood is alive with dark magic. So
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
fun.
We could have gone for even more realistic. Yeah.
No, I think this is the
But
the right
yeah,
call.
this is her light bouncing around and her
Yeah.
fantasy and she's pouring out.
Yeah. And it's not a
Yeah.
prom. We're not at the prom.
It's not a problem.
Yeah. So I love um when I again when I like because you would come up with the Rider Waite Smith parts of this. I did not put the idea that the rainbow in the background, but that is totally a 10 of Cups moment is the rainbow over everything. So
Yeah, I was
I
wondering if
love
it
that.
was, yeah, and I thought when I saw some bar shots, I was like, oh, I know how to do this.
Yeah, I like the way people like light up alcohol bottles in bars to kind of give it that energy and life. And so I like they made it work. This is okay. This is very pretty clear, like True Blood. We found blood substitutes, and he can have a beer, and everyone's having a good time. So
Yeah.
there we go. It all worked out, guys. It's fine. And the implication, of course, that he didn't turn into a vampire. He's still immortal, and you can make things work. For me, the 10 of Cups has that energy of like it's gonna work, it's gonna settle itself and be fine, and you'll be happy with things as they are, where this is what everything you have is exactly what you want it to be. This is the stage after that, it's like okay, things are good.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, was there anything else you want to say about this card?
No, I
uh,
think it's the most similar from the 2 to the 10. I was concerned a little, but then we found or you had all this important detail of what they're drinking and how the cups are, and they also swap
They
positions.
did swap. I thought that was creative of
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
That was a
So
you choice. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else, because they can't have a child.
yeah,
Maybe they could have
yeah,
had
yeah,
an undead dog or something. So I love so this was the idea of here's a self-portrait of the artist as oh no, the self-portrait's later. This is the artist as vampire, and the idea of so in the Page of Cups, the Rider-Waite-Smith, there's that fish sort of apropos of nothing appearing in the chalice, which is cool and it's
Mm,
amazing, and it's such a useful thing for the divination. But like, so this is our nod to that, is that she's got this kind of faraway look in her eye, and she's like
yeah,
able to control the blood and make it into this beautiful like koi fish.
yeah. Or if it's not that, she sees patterns that other people don't see.
Yeah,
And that's where some of her inspiration comes from.
yeah, love it. And I think that sometimes I don't always love when a tarot deck decides to give the courts like jobs, and I admit that we have that in three of them with the artist and the rock star, and then there's one coming up. But I think I love that. Also, I love the lilies
Yeah.
print that you have on her to suggest the water. I'll mention the water again in a minute, but this card is fun. So like people, this is the romantic heartthrob vampire, and here we do have the one knight who has a motorcycle.
Yeah.
But I love the seaside town that you have. This sort of angle of like up high up on the hills. Like where do you? Obviously he's great, but like how, figuring out how to set this scene.
Yeah, I think we were thinking, I guess it was just the suggestion that he's there
Mhm.
and what he's doing is inviting you for a ride, to join.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you want to drink?
Be part of this adventure. So the adventure, I guess I just said, okay, the adventure has to be back there behind him.
Yeah. He literally
So
has his heart on his sleeve, which I
yes,
thought
I,
is so
I like
cool.
that idea. Yeah.
Subtle with a B.
Um,
Um,
yeah, I'm glad we had one on a couple.
I love that the motorcycle is not a modern motorcycle, and I think that that's a touch, and that also his attire has kind of got that sort of noir era, I can't remember, Marlon Brando kind of thing going on, which
Yeah, yeah.
suggests that he might not be a 17-year-old. He might he might be a little older than that.
How long have you been 17?
Let's see. Now, this card, the idea of like the psychic vampire, I thought was like you have to have, if you're gonna do a modern vampire deck, you have to have the psychic vampire energy idea. And so we wanted to like play with something that wasn't red. And so I know you and I talked about like, is it blue? Is the psychic energy blue? And I like that you make it like a Bunsen burner flame.
Yeah, yeah. Once we decided on a color, yeah, I just thought, oh, there it is. It's it's still sort of a drop.
Yeah.
Somehow that works well, but it's still elemental, but it's a
Mhm.
little otherworldly being blue like that. Yeah, I don't know. It just
Yeah.
it worked out, and sort of in this composition we have her above and her below.
Yeah.
It just connected them. Yeah.
I love it. And again, this was one of the cards that showed up in that review where it was like, oh, this is heteronormative. I'm like, is it? But I will say, okay, there was a lot of concern about this card about the safety of that fish.
Yes,
So
a little bit, a little bit of worry.
there we go. So here I'll speak to that. So the queens. So when I was writing this deck, like, why do the queens have pets on them? Like, why is that important? And what does that suggest? And the idea of like, to me, the queens have embodied this. They've mastered the element, for within themselves. So they are instinctual
Mm,
about the element. And so the idea there being the animal side of that, showing that it's like it's become instinctual. And I don't know, that was my idea. And so obviously, and I like the idea of a lionfish because they're so deadly, and and I wanted that and like and predatory as opposed to like a goldfish.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
of course you can't put a fish this size in a bowl this small and have it be okay. It would need to be in a giant tank. And I think I wrote about that in the script. Like it doesn't make any sense, but like it would just look cool if it's in a little bowl. And then I remember the art director came back with like, I don't think that fish would be okay in that little bowl.
Yeah, we had a little switch near the end, and it was a new person who was super helpful, but
Yeah.
he was a little concerned about that. I liked your, you just wanted, because it just paralleled, my visual senses. Like,
Mm.
I just want the fish there, nearby, right there, and
Looking cool.
I felt the same way, it's like, let's put it right behind her elbow. So,
It's a vampire fish. It's fine.
yeah,
It's gonna
yeah. She puts a
uh
drop of blood in there.
so one thing I love, I was watching a video review and they're like, oh man, yeah, they work the water in. There's the water in the court cards, each of them. And then she pulled the king and she's like, oh. And I thought like, okay. And
I
I was
think
like,
I
what?
heard that one. Yeah, just
Yeah.
recently, and I was like, oh, yeah,
And I
fountain.
was like, oh man, yeah, I guess maybe there should have been a fountain inside. Okay, so this is our so we had Jonathan Rhys Meyers in the King of Wands. Here's the King of Cups. This is more that like Hammer era Dracula,
Yeah,
old timey. He's got the like more like the old like teeth are just out, like they're like you get it Spirit Halloween
yeah.
kind of
That's that.
thing.
That's that risky putting the teeth in front of the lip, but it kind of worked out.
It makes him so smiley as opposed to like when he's smiling and welcoming you and like welcome, come in for the drink. But by putting it like that, as opposed if his mouth was open, it looked like he's eating you, right? And there's his
Mm-hmm.
rose. And I also remember like okay, how many capes can you have in the deck and have it look normal? So like people are in trench coats, people are in robes. And then there's a couple capes, but I love the idea of like this like the way certain well-to-do gentlemen just seem to wear their suit coats or whatever, or they're like as a
Yeah,
bit like a cape. And I love that way you were able to do that.
yeah. Perfect idea for
This
that.
was
Yeah.
the one you created a bunch of different architectures for. I remember like all of the thumbnails had these like really different architectures for this card as far
I
as
think.
what the entryway looks like.
Yeah, I think. We were getting near closer to the end. Time was crunching up a little, and yeah, I may have even sketched things and even like photo montaged things a
Yeah.
little, just a little here and there in the background.
Yeah. And because
So
Mike what Kaka made me idea, there has to be a moon. So we have to have a giant window like that where the moon would be appearing. Yeah.
yeah, I thought, well, at least one of them it can be right in the darn
Yeah.
middle there. Yeah, like that's okay from one of them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, something about the curved shapes were great for this guy. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It was a cup card, so there was already all those
The softness.
bold shapes in it. Yeah. So it just framed him up beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah. Um
But it could have been a film.
no,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I guess like okay, if we ever get it to have to do the mini deck, we'll put a fountain in that one. But I do love like to me this is like the King of Cups is a very emotionally balanced character, and the idea of them just being like welcoming, it's like, welcome to my home, Jonathan Harker, kind of a vibe.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
closest we had to the old timey Dracula in the deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this one, Ace of Swords, people love this sword so much. When I see the videos of it, like how the cross
Oh, that's
piece
good. Oh,
and being a bat, and I just like the idea of swords cut through the crap, they cut through things and find the truth. And I just like the way you play with the smoke in that to show that like that a disruption from the sword.
might have been the first card I dived into, unless it was the Ace of Wands. But and yeah, it was like it's slicing the air, and I'm like, wow, what is it? Slice the air? Of course, it slices the air, but how does that look?
Yeah.
And I just was looking at clouds, looking at all sorts of wind things, and then a wind tunnel popped up, and it showed those the break point of the wind, all the little smoke trails go crazy afterwards. I said, oh,
Nice.
that's it. We got
It's cool, and it's one of those things like it's cool, and you instantly like your mind clocks it, and you like obviously the viewer isn't spending all this time on it, but like you had to spend all this time to create that effortless seeming thing. And I also like that the hand is not gripping the sword. It sort of
Yeah,
seems to
yeah,
be levitating a little bit.
yeah. It's just floating there, actually, if you look
Yeah.
close. Yeah, I like that too.
So here we have that character, and this is my moment. I was like, oh yeah, they're non-binary. Um, and just like the tension of this moment, and the and also we know that they've been training with blind fighting
Yeah,
by quite a bit. But I also just love the way that the vampire is sort of like is framed as like it's that moment like something's behind you, it's behind you, but like they have to wait for the exact moment
yeah,
to move. And I think I remember like reading that they're kukris, and then I thought because I don't know, like you only want you don't want all the swords to just be like broadswords, but I love this sort of like bird of prey handle
yeah,
detail that you gave it.
yeah. A little sneak in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like the way he's not. If he was barreling in,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be right, right? Like it would.
Yeah.
He has to be. She's concentrating, but he's concentrating just as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it worked out.
And also it's important it was with all these characters, it's important to like be able to differentiate like who's a human, just sort of like visually. And I like some of the ways you can tell this person might be human is like they don't have the great fashion budget that the rest of the vampires have. And I think like
Yeah,
the brown leather, like I feel like vampire hunters are always like in brown leather jackets. It's very like supernatural and
yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. So very cool. Those boots are cool. Okay, this one is such an arresting image, and I really there have been so many Three of Swords that are the hearts, and of course that's the inspiration for this, and that's where that comes from. But wanting to have this sort of like horror moment in the card, and just this like you wake up, and it's almost like an urban legend, you know, like a person thought they were doing one thing and they wake up, and I think that was why there's this like I remember like mentioning that like she looked like she slept in her makeup
Yeah.
and it's running. And I think the visual might have been like Natasha Leone hair or something that I wrote that
Yeah,
looks a
yeah,
little
yeah,
tousled.
yeah. Yeah, I thought it was a great idea to put this it's sort of sits off to the side of vampires, the whole urban legend stuff, and yet it fits perfectly. I love that idea. And then um so it was all coming together, but then I realized some of those old Victorian syringes, it was just all glass in the middle there. And I was like, oh, so the light comes right through. So
Love it.
it could be just as bright as they needed to be. So,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it just came together fun. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Natasha Leone searching was fun. Yeah. She's,
You're like, which
and her
era is it?
wild hair. And yeah, yeah, just great.
Yeah. And of course, if you were a vampire and you were to have a victim, like you probably would have strapped their arms down, but it was important to us that the that the character I like that her hand is hovering, like she's not sure it's real. She hasn't decided what to do,
Yeah.
but she will be able to save herself. We think she'll be able to get
Yeah.
out. You need to give everybody an out in a tarot reading. Even there's moments where like things look pretty grim, especially when we get to the 10 of this suit. That like, but someone's gonna put this down, and it's like, what should I do about my career? Like, you have to give them some kind of out visually, and so the
Yeah.
reader gets to
Yeah.
say like, okay, just unstrap yourself and move on. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this I love the we both the Four of Swords and the Four of Pentacles both had coffins, which makes sense as the fours are so solid and
Mm.
four is so stable, and so like I like that image. But they're so different, and this one is much more like the Snow White glass coffin thing. And I remember having like the idea of like angels in the back, four angels in the background, which is great if this is horizontal. But since it's vertical, I later was like, oh, how does Craig do that? And I like what you did. Like they're just right there. They are right up on the coffin, looking over her.
Yeah, you could put them in a row, but then it just makes everything so small and in the
Yeah,
middle of the card. Yeah, so you're always searching for those lines that go up and down.
yeah,
How's that going to work out? Um, yeah, and so then they needed to not be all the same, but
hmm,
kind of the same. But the light really did that. The light was really
yeah. And also like the idea that like this is a rest as opposed to like this is not death, this is not forever, you're not retiring, this is just a rest. So like I think that's implied both in the like she's very secure enough that her glass coffin is glass, and yeah, she can just we can there's like a narrative that the reader gets to say that like, eventually you're going to walk up those stairs and walk back into the world, kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thing. Let's see. All right. So werewolves are so hard to draw. And I'm sorry, not to draw, but there's so many werewolf movies where the werewolf just looks terrible. And I remember writing this and being like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Werewolves are so bad. And you did such a great job on this werewolf. To my mind, it looks just wolfy enough, and I like the I love the proportions, and it looks like like they're still transforming, and the rippling and the howl, and there's the moon up there. But I don't know, how annoyed were you with like you have to draw a werewolf
No, no,
now?
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, because I agree. I mean, I may even have like way back some illustrations of werewolves that were not so referenced, and I didn't dive into it as deep. That was quite a while ago. So yeah, this one I wanted. Let's find the right reference for that face. Let's be really careful with these proportions. He really does
Yeah.
have that sort of superhero top that's
Yeah.
ripping apart. Maybe should be ripping that shirt a little more, but yeah, I'm glad you like it because I just wanted just you can also have that fail where it's just a wolf head on top of a person, so
Yeah, that could
yeah,
happen.
bring that fur down, make the claws
And then
awesome.
their feet have to go that way. I forget what that's called in biology, but
Yeah. So and then that all had to work with this whole composition of this cool idea we had of the defeat. This is
yeah,
the defeat.
I did have a moment with I don't know. I think remember someone saying like, "Well, he killed the vampires." I'm like, "Well, they're not dead. Like vampires are very hard to kill too. It's just they've been startled, and yeah, they're not staked, which was important. I think we didn't want to show anyone like anything's over, but also we also implied that the narrative here is that these vampires thought they had an easy mark, and then it turns out they messed with a werewolf. And so I like that your decision to like the moon is just sort of peering out, like, oops, they weren't counting on this, and then when the moon caught him, he turned into to a werewolf. So and also this was very like for me bringing back my like Vampire the Masquerade days of like these outfits are very very that.
Funny, you put a defeated person or a corpse on the ground, and you're like, okay, that's gonna be easy to paint, right? Like they're dead. It's like no,
Yeah.
they're so much harder. They're
Oh, because they're how they flop and
and I was just yeah, I was glad I could get them together and find some good reference for like uh sprawled, defeated, but not crushed. I don't know. It was
yeah,
just
well, like his leg being up suggests that there's still something going on there to
yeah,
me. And
yeah, he
then
may have just gone down. Yeah.
but then to get them both in the same frame vertically, yeah, I'm a terrible person for doing that too. But no, I love this card. And it felt like one of the cards that could go wrong if like the werewolf didn't look cool. And I love those gums.
Oh, you never blinked though. You never blinked. You just let me go for it.
Yeah. So here we have, okay, this is the one card where I never did figure out where the six swords went, and I think you created this. But the idea of it's time to go, and another same-sex relationship, just for keeping score here. But the it's also looked like London to me, like with the kind of the old-timey
Yeah.
gas lamps. But I remember writing like, okay, they've got to leave the six of if you want to know if you have a Rider-Waite Smith deck, look at the six of swords. If you see a boat, there you go. But I remember like sending you like they can't just be in like a regular like a ferry. So I remember sending you like billionaires like super yachts that look like Bond villain vehicles for the
Yeah.
boat. There's like my main reference for the boat. And then
No,
but this is not any of those. You took like those and made your own like crazy cool futuristic vampire getaway boat.
yeah, yeah. It's got tinted windows, the whole bit. Yeah. No, I thought that was a great idea for that. Yeah, and I think I just found 50, 15, 20 more cool yachts and took all the best parts from
And
them.
I love it. I think that also I remember the idea that like vampires in like these traveling robes The Five of Cups has them as well. So these shrouded figures. The idea that like when the vampires are traveling, they have to like wear these cloaks to like protect them and hide them. But it's also a reference to New Orleans mythology. There was the uh Ursuline nun convents where young girls would be sent to New Orleans to live with the nuns, and they'd come with these big boxes with all their possessions, and it was, I'm told, it's one of the things that contributed to the vampires of New Orleans mythology. So I love that that's a play here. We have the younger, or shorter at least, I don't know how old she but she seems less secure character in that moment.
Yeah, I think there was a little hint of like one is guiding the other, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah, she's a little less secure.
yeah. This one, I just love how punk you make her. The idea of the Seven of Swords to me is not playing by the rules. And so people get into theft or whatever, but it's just like I'm not having a fair fight with you. And I think in vampire movies, there's like often a moment where like humans with guns think they're in charge, and they start like pointing their guns and shooting at the vampire, and the vampire's super speed. But it's so hard I can say, oh, she has super speed, but you had to actually draw that in a way that anyone looking at it would be like, oh, okay, I get it, she's moving faster than the, and like this kind of like echoey effect with the lines to show like this fast, like supersonic movement. So talk about
Yeah,
that.
there was a chance because I was like, oh, I had the idea and I was like, oh, this could look really cheesy if I do this wrong. But I just messed with those edges, especially the edges that were sort of those highlights hitting her.
Yeah,
So those are the things that are echoing, and a little careful, or erasing of the ones that didn't need to be there. Made it work pretty nicely. Yeah, I was pleased with this. This is our most superhero moment of vampires.
yeah,
Use vampiric superpowers.
I love it. So this one, when I'm writing the guidebook, I realize I've made a horrible mistake.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it till I read the guidebook.
So I had this like cool idea. So the idea, dear tarot, dear listeners, the idea here is that the Eight of Swords is the idea that you're in a cage. You feel like you're in a cage, but there is a way out, but you have to be careful. And I think in a lot of horror movies, they play with the idea of funhouse mirrors, and people like running into a funhouse to escape from monsters seems like a bad idea. But so here we have the scene where one of these is real and the rest are mirror reflections, and she can get out if she can figure out which is which. And I wrote that, and the art exists, and I'm writing the guidebook. So obviously, like a script was written for each card, but then for the final guidebook has to have the full thing. And I remember thinking like, oh crap, like I tried to think of like all the different justifications for why he is in the mirror, and his reflection exists when we have a card, the other Eight of Cups, without the reflection. And I remember writing like different things, or there's power, or like maybe and I'm like, well, he's clearly not a human familiar. And I remember like thinking, oh, do we have to go back and like black it out so it's just and then I took the easy way out, and I just wrote and some vampires do have reflections, it would seem. And mea culpa if you're listening, if that seems like not enough, but like this was, I think this is how we can do it and all move on with our lives. That this vampire, just like not all vampires turn into bats, not all vampires turn into mist in our deck. Some of them have reflections and some don't.
Yeah, and it never crossed my mind, so I can't say I want to or anything
Yeah,
close to
so
that. I
this
just
was
thought a very cool idea that he's, the fear of that, where who's coming from where was just encapsulated in this, and then the challenge of finding like, yeah, how do you illustrate a mirror house? So yeah, never thinking about vampires' reflections. I dove right.
yeah, oops. But I will say, I again, like when I was like, well, this is one of the ones I was like, how do you draw 8 people, and they have to be like all reflected different directions. I'm like, are some gonna be above, some below, and you have to fit it vertically. And I thought you did a really cool job with that. And but I really love, this looks like a horror movie poster for me, where like it's like that iconic final girl energy of like, I've got to get out, and like he's right there, and we the audience are like, he's right there, or maybe that's him, we don't know. And just I love, it felt like a really good like movie poster to me.
Oh, yeah, yeah, a few years before I had done this deck, I was doing there's this great website called Month of Fear, and they had all these great themes, that you could do in October, and one each, do an illustration each week. And I had done some horror movie posters. So I think, yeah, a little of that came over into this.
Nice.
Yeah, you want her pretty but scared, but falling apart a little, but not, a puddle on the floor. So
Yeah.
just that possibly a little trite expression, but kind of perfect for showing like uh bound up in fear,
Yeah.
fear
Well,
and
and to my mind, that's the difference between like a final girl and like a vampire hunter. Like this is a more
yeah.
of a suburban character that is caught up in this moment, as opposed to like someone who's been training to like blind fight vampires. So, and I like that there's like the innocence, like she's wearing this like denim jacket, and I don't know, I think it's really cool. And I also like the swords are this cool um like curved like scimitar or saber, the kind of image.
Yeah, that would probably be closest to like a Japanese
A
katana.
katana, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So we want a little visual interest with our okay, this is a real nightmare that I had while working on the deck, that I woke up and there was a person at my bed, and I
Yeah.
just remember being like it felt so real, and it felt very much like this card, and so I wanted that included. I think this is one of the ones that, when you pointed out that where there were needed to be a little more monstrous quality to the vampires, just some more, like a few more monsters in the deck. This one changed a bit to be more of this like creature, and the way the light is coming through him. But the most important thing for me was this idea of it's your feet sticking out, and like the camera, or wherever the camera is like to give you that sense.
Yeah, yeah, you had that description, but I think, yeah, how does he's coming for us. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a
um
sneaky, he's a little sneaky David Lynch reference there.
I love it. And also the idea that he's coming up from the floor seems very like horror movie. Like it's, I think I had him on the bed originally, but I think this week makes way more sense that like it's like the boogeyman kind of thing. And also like a dream vampire, which is in different lore. And I also like the way the a big thing that you want to tell people with this card is that it could be in their head, it could be stress, it could be anxiety. And so I like the dreamlike quality of these swords. They're all hanging perfectly, and they're just floating for no reason, and which should suggest to us that maybe they're not real, that they're in the mind. And I like the way you did that. But there is this one like sort of Damocles one
All
right
right.
above us.
So be careful.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so this reference, this is the vampire trying to sneak up in the two of swords, getting their comeuppance. And this is a reference to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original film. Paul Rubens' death scene being like this over the top moment, and it was originally filmed as a gag by Paul Rubens. He was joking, but they kept it for better or worse, and it's
Yeah.
probably one of the most iconic parts of that movie. So I like that you kind of captured Paul Rubens vampire-esque, like the character he plays. I forget, like Lotho, I can't remember his name, but
Yeah.
the way he looks in that. And I also remember trying to so vampires, famously, if you stick them with a wooden stake just right, they die. But in the 10 of swords, we have to have 10 swords. And I also, these are 10 very different swords. I think that's so awesome. Stabbed into this guy, like he's really suffering, he's having a real bad time, but they've managed to not pierce the heart. So it might not be over. It's just he probably needs some blood really, really soon if he's gonna make it.
Although if you look at that light, maybe that might be the sun coming
That could
up.
be the sun. Maybe I don't know like his chances. I wouldn't bet on him, but I also love the way that you have the blood pooling in the cobblestones. I think that's like was so smart. Like it's not just a blood spatter, but it's like it's really suggesting like the life is seeping out of him, which is
Uh,
what it feels like in the ten of swords.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought that was the perfect way for that blood to be. You could just spray blood everywhere, but like,
Yeah.
when we put them in this environment. Yeah, the variety of swords, maybe a little crazy. I just imagined
Oh, why
her,
not?
her fight went a little longer than she thought. Like there's her
Yeah.
two swords that she started with, but
Oh,
they're just
there's the kukris.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
So
then there, yeah.
turns out,
Luckily they had like a usually like a carload of like usually hunters have like their what do you call that? The trunk of their cars filled with weapons. So maybe what's going on. This the moonlight in this scene. So the idea of being, to me the page of swords is like a super spy. They're stealthy, they're smart, and there's usually mist appearing, like obscuring the vision of the page of swords. So I love the idea of playing with the vampire as they can transform into mist. I just love there's like not too many colors in this scene, and like just how the silver glows on his skin and his like eye highlight there. Pretty cool.
yeah. This so I guess this is our other super heroic vampire superpower. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have that mist. That's two layers of windows. Nothing stops this guy.
Yeah.
And I liked that you mentioned Vampire the Masquerade and the clans. Our swords were sort of this clan, sort of inspired by uh, the the vampires with all the gear. The
Yeah.
vampires with all the high tech stuff.
Yes. I get like kind of like a La Sombra, yeah, like vibe, but with him with adventurers like that. I love that also, yeah, he's wearing tactical gear. It's not just another like he's not wearing like I don't know, runway fashions like some of the other vampires. This suit, if you really like come in on it, like it's like all the buckles, it looks like it reminds me of, and there's like another underworld reference coming, but like those vampires having that super technology. But just and then there's that little so I don't know, I just love the way the silence of this card is I think is pretty effective. So then a louder card from the silence. This to me the ultimate Knight of Swords in vampire lore is Celine, played
Mm.
by Kate Beckinsale in the Underworld films, and we have a lot of battles on rooftops kind of things going on, and she early in the movie before she really knows what's going on has this energy of just being she's a death dealer, and she is just this ferocious force of energy like hunting werewolves. And I wanted the um instead of having like, and she does have a sword here, but I like the idea of having throwing knives because the Knight of Swords just goes forward and leaps, and so I wanted that projectile energy, and I thought you have this a really cool throwing knife there, and I love her expression with it, but like so she's still got her beautiful eyeshadow on, but she's going to town.
Yeah. So yeah, here's our underworld exemplar, but
Yeah.
whole clan is like that, or we're
Yeah.
calling. And yeah, she's the most like coming at you example of it.
Yeah. That just it's kind of a cool energy, and then but from that intensity of the Knight of Swords we get the subtlety of the Queen of Swords, who is our box cover, and again the queens have pets, so hers is a peregrine falcon, which I remember I originally wrote something ridiculous. I think it was a harpy eagle, and then I thought about that and like it did not make any sense for the subtlety of her, so we changed that. But I wanted her to give her the cane sword because the Queen of Swords can be very cutting, to use the pun there, but and a little vicious, but it tends not to be this sort of aggro energy. It tends to be a witty energy, and intelligent energy, and a lot of tarot readers identify as Queens of Swords. So I like the idea of giving her like This also because there's a archetype within vampires that I enjoy, which is the underestimated, especially with female vampires. This the idea that they are taken for granted as just sort of these beautiful beings, and they have a lethality that is surprising. So I like the idea of not only just the cane sword, but like that it's like uh her pose that you have her in, where it's kind of like like, you want to go, like it's like she's relaxed, she's not concerned about how this battle is about to go, so it's kind of like, do you really want to do this?
Yeah, her expression, I was so happy with because, yeah, she looks not in the slightest worried,
Yeah,
and yet seems ready. So I don't know. I just was it's you dive into the face. Sometimes you save the face for last, and you're like, yeah, I know what this needs to be. And you sometimes spend 2 hours and go, it's not even close. It's not what happens. But
no,
this,
this is so
uh,
cool.
yeah,
But also the way that you kind of have like the hawk or the falcon in her, kind of like there's a bit of like a symmetry or a rhyming that I love that's happening with both of their looks. So kind of like they're both regarding you like your food.
yeah, yeah,
So I love it. Um, and then this guy, some people tend to like his vibe. I like the idea of course vampires heal, but like there's some wounds that seem not to heal from, or maybe he had these beforehand, or maybe they haven't healed yet. But just the idea of uh the King of Swords, doesn't things don't come easy to him. He fights for what he has, and he also has a um to me, the scars represent, there have been many battles and he has survived them all. He has the strength and the cunning to have survived and risen to the top. And I like that. I remember I wondered at one point if there should be like a throne of skulls, but like that just seems very uncomfortable. So just like a vampire skull to
yeah,
represent his enemies. So he's got that same tactical gear going on.
yeah. A little touch of that. But yeah, we needed to see his scars. Yeah, sure. The lore, definitely. I think a vampire can have a.
You know, scars. I mean, especially if like they're like werewolf scars. Maybe I don't know. I think he probably had to go after the guy in the Five of Swords. So I also like. What was the inspiration for this like snake?
Yeah, I was probably looking at some of the symbols in the Rider Waite and maybe even digging a little
Oh
deeper
yeah,
into
well he's definitely got his like that butterfly, which is so funny that like
Firefly.
this gnarly dude with like this grizzled beard and the sword, and he's got little butterflies, which is definitely in the Rider Waite.
Yeah, so I like sneaking a few of those in. I
Yeah.
looking at his throne, I said, yeah, it's got to be an impressive throne. But I hate to cut off that sky, and I thought, how can it be? How can we?
Oh, that's cool. I like that the snake is coiled, like it's ready to strike. You know what I mean? It's not just like a lot of times snakes are like just sort of like they're like slithering somewhere else. But I like that the his energy is also coiled. Like the King of Swords is ready to go, whereas in the Knight of Swords she's go 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 and coming at you. And then this is like the Queen and the King have this sort of like seething like undercurrent of power that I think is cool. Um, Yeah. Okay. I remember wondering. So the aces having these hands was important and having the object. And I
Yeah,
remember like being worried that it's cheesy to have the hand coming out of the grave. I remember asking Barbara, like, do you think this is just as too cheesy? But like, no, like it's an iconic vampire thing. And
I
it
think they're
really does work for like the earthiness of the suit of pentacles and the physicality of the pentacles, and also like it's about the eternity of vampires rather.
yeah, yeah. I think our big fans and the fans of vampire stuff know that. Yeah, there's some stage where you're a ghoul or you were imprisoned or you were caught or you just had to come up out of that grave. So
Hmm.
I think it's a great vampire image even for the modern stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
to be included. Gave
So,
us a chance to have a real claw filled.
claw moment. Yeah. Like it has begun. So this one, okay, I knew. So I had this cockamamie idea that the twos would pay off in the tens, and it was really working out. There's always like one that's like a challenge, and I knew that the Ten of Pentacles was the found family of vampires, and there's a lot of fiction where like vampires from different parts of the world come together and live in harmony. And so I needed the two to be like the beginning of that story. And how do you get here? And I think it's I think Barbara was the one who said it's two portraits. Have him be like he's like trying to figure out two portraits, and the like he's trying to balance it right now, but like at some point you do have to make a decision. And he's up on a ladder because the fool, sorry, not the fool, the Two of Pentacles has that sort of like dancing on sand quality. It's a little precarious, like it's hard to maintain that way, like the balance suggested by the Two of Pentacles. So I thought that would be a fun way to make him a little more precarious, to put him up on there. But I love the like this is a very like happy little healthy family. What a good choice that would be. But like this image of his vampire mistress just really, I think, speaks to me. But I'd love you to talk about that part of the card.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we needed. I mean, if he's gotten this portrait painted, I think we know which one he's going to hang up. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I thought it was she just had to be his perfect fire match, didn't she?
Yeah, I think it works. And I also like the fire that you've got going on in the hearth below. It kind of, there's a lot of reds that are coming together for like these people are blonde, but our three gingers here, or, well, our two gingers and like this like fire that's like, I don't know, it suggested to me that like it's um intensely like there's some intensity there, and it's a little precarious. And then for the truly careful
Yeah,
of eye, you will see the Two of Pentacles and the Red White Smith, which we love. I hope that's clear. Has that ship on the sea rocking back and forth, and there it is. Well, that's a Craig, obviously, decision.
yeah. There was whenever I had the description, had the most important details. I had the things that if this fits. But I also just had to double check in on the rider weight to
Yeah,
see if it just gave me a little extra flourish somewhere.
I love it. I really do. Um, I love her vibe. Here's what I love about one favorite thing about this is that well, one thing I love about you as an artist, Craig, is that like there's such variety with all the people, and then you had to put 78 cards together. Several of them have multiple people, and so you can't just have the same like lady on every card being like the sort of dark long-haired raven hair, like vixen. So I love the I remember like girl boss energy, or like boss energy was one to suggest. I love this executive tousled haircut, but to me what I loved was this collar is so vampire, and it so like suggests that like that kind of vampire cape, or like the bat kind of energy. And I love that like even if you're looking at the scene, it's okay, you have the context of the vampire deck, it's clear who's the vampire in the scene and who is not. And I just thought her energy was cool. And also the office being like looking above the world, and we have the police chief. I don't know if people will be able to tell because he's not looking from the front, but that's a priest. So it's the idea of different forces working together. And I think that in the suit of Pentacles, with our world building, the idea is that it's the Pentacles represent the eternal order, which is the vampire's dominion over the earth. And it's like the kind of the vampires that like to get into politics. So I think to rule the city, and I love the city map that you've chosen. So what memories do you have about this card?
Yeah. I hope that collar just like rides the line between this could be her business intense outfit, and
It's just on that edge, and I love it.
it pops into like a costume just slightly, but just so everything else can be this down to business, like commanding attitude.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we had the neighborhoods and the zones of control on the map. I was like, this is tough to include this, but
Oh man,
um,
I'm sorry.
but I love the idea. And then once I got the map just like spreading out like towards us, I
Mhm.
said, yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Um, a little fun thing in this was turning our symbol into a sort of
Stamp.
fuzzy stamp. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
There's some
like.
like vampire intern out there that has to stamp all of these with the with ink. I love it. But it is cool, yeah, because it's the thing I like about it, what you did it, is that like it appears again and again, but it's different sometimes when people see it, especially when we get to the 8.
Yeah,
So very cool. Yeah, the this because I got to write a city map, and I don't have to actually draw that, so I love what you came up with. I think that like if you see this part of it, you get what's going on
yeah.
there.
It can fade into the distance. It
Yeah.
can move, you know.
This I think is my favorite, like most steampunk card, and in the deck, and I love the idea of the 4 of Pentacles is the idea of being protective and maybe a little greedy and not sharing, and I think that it's best if you present that as like a neutral idea as opposed to to a bad one, and this card is like the most protective of protective. Everything about this like is so heavy, the safe, all of the locks, and the idea implication that maybe these are each a different kind of lock that has a different kind of key, and then you have the 4 lasers. And I remember the Rottweiler being like, and can there be a Rottweiler in this card? And it's just like, so, and I like that there's no person in this card, it's just so implied.
Yeah, I don't know if that coffin ends up going in there in the vault, or we are in the vault.
Yeah.
So it could be a vampiric dog stuck in the vault there. He can last a long time. But the point is, all the symbols are there. Yeah, all that protection, all that with a glaze of hoarding to a certain extent. Really fun to design that coffin.
Yeah.
Uh, we put, if we just put our symbol on there 4 times, it might have even looked okay. But like the the once I started getting that little all that hardware together, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now this really looks like something we made special for our deck.
Yeah. And I think that like if you're going to spend eternity in these things, like you don't want just like a pine box that you're going into. And so like the idea of like the classiest vampires are in this suit, and they have something a little more custom.
Yeah, and what a
Yeah.
role playing adventure! Like clearly, you have to find 4 keys.
Oh
So
yeah, you got to have 4 keys, you got to get past this, you got to bribe the dog. Maybe the dog's already like, over it, but
yeah,
uh it's pretty secure. So this one was it. I think that it's like, there's that moment in vampire fiction when someone's turned against their will. And obviously we have in the major arcana the idea of someone who wants to become a vampire and chooses that. But we also like the 5 of Pentacles is the idea that there's like the you don't have the resources that you need, you're out of your depth, you're in trouble, you're in need, and you can't go to the authorities. And there's a church usually in the Rider-Waite-Smith version of it, but I think that we wanted like to my mind that made like the cops and like having the lights at night and having it feel like he's like touching his, remember like being like, I don't know how you'll draw this, but like you have to, he's like trying to figure out like what's wrong with his mouth, that like his mouth doesn't feel right, and so he's like touching that. And then
yeah,
the 5 of Pentacles is like maybe this way.
yeah. A lot of uncertainty in this one. All these fives
They're
uh,
rough.
dip into a little grayness. They still have some of our color in them. Yeah, that was the challenge on his face, and then just it, yeah, and the expression as well. Um, his head sticking out a little there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked, but when I got them together, I said, yeah, he does seem to be like
Yeah.
hiding back in there. We kind of we. It's not just that, but he's also like just crunched up into that little space on this card. Like at this particular moment, that's all the space for this guy.
Yeah, there's no room for him. I love that image, and it's so he's like in the fetal position almost, and there's like an implication maybe of homelessness there that does match with the Rider-Waite-Smith. And but because he's immortal, he's got Converse, which I love because they just like the Fool. as the converse. And
Yeah, so this might have like echoed back to like, yeah, well, the one Poppy Z Bright story I read was, yeah, the vampires were, they weren't quite in this guy's state, but they were just out.
oh, is it Lost
Van,
Souls?
yeah, I think it was Lost
Love
Soul.
that book. Yeah.
And they were just in a van, and you could just
Yeah.
like a sort of glorious mess that they were living in, but loving.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Yeah,
hard drinking. Like teenagers are doing a lot of hard drinking in that book. So I love it. The six is to my the reminder that so most of the vampires use their powers for themselves to like blend in or protect themselves or find their prey. But there's also the hero vampires in fiction, are using their powers for good. And the idea of the the six of pentacles, excuse me, the six of pentacles being about giving of yourself to balance things out. So I like the idea of like a vampire injecting her blood into the IV because that would heal her. And I love the way that the blood seems to be working with this golden light, which we haven't seen like
yeah,
before in the deck. It's like instead of like the red like energy of like delicious blood that we want to drink, it's like this healing energy going on. I love that choice.
yeah. We wanted that. It's kind of a one use of it, but it's different than the wands, so it gives
Yeah.
us yeah, nice variety there. And um, I was like, how is that going to glow? How is that going to continue? But then the more I just sort of set this whole scene in a like
Hmm.
a nighttime hospital,
Hmm.
bring everything gray, and
Hmm.
then let us glow her energy through that whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in shadow. And I think if I recall correctly, I know I had trouble figuring out where the six swords were in the six of swords, but I don't think I wrote anything of where because she can't be dropping coins into the IV. And I don't know, I think I didn't write where they are. And you created this necklace for her to like, there's your six of coins. Cause I really do think in tarot cards, you need the emblems to appear
Yeah.
in the
Uh,
card.
I was like understanding you more and more as the more cards I did. So yeah, I don't know if they even like they're sort of just right up front, like
Yeah,
she's
there they
not even
are.
so yeah, but like you need that. You need them to just be there.
Yeah.
Also, yeah. I'm behind that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So this is the mea culpa. Like I think as the writer, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool? One wacky thing when I was scripting this card, I remember Googling what happens if you feed plants blood or if you water plants with blood and reading that, and I was like, I have a weird life. Like, what am I have found the edge of the internet. I'm reading about giving blood to plants. So the idea being pouring yourself into your work, working hard, waiting for things to come to fruition. And we've had so many roses in the deck at this point and lilies that I thought, oh, this should be, would it be cool if there's seven different poisonous plants? Oh, I know. I'll Google poisonous plants. I'll look them all up and oh, these are great. And I like send them to you and then I remember being like, I think I remember writing an email that you don't have to do seven different plants. That's crazy talk. Maybe the roses, maybe they're all just the kind of like Little Shop of Horrors, Venus flytraps. That would be fine. I'm sorry, Craig. And then like the first version you sent back had all seven plants perfectly like drawn and beautiful.
This was a fun one, yeah. And uh once you start getting into that reference, you're like, these are beautiful. This is I have to do these. I've forgotten some of these names, but the purple.
Belladonna and
Uh,
Datura and all of these things. Yeah.
I mean, and it is, yeah, it is a little bit of an over the top Venus flytrap. But come on, let's
Oh,
have.
come on. Yeah. Looking
All right.
great.
Um, and putting in that slightly run down atrium was kind of cool too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They kind of like this conservatory going on. I remember a question I had for this one is like, should there be a pail nearby with like a foot in it? Like a severed foot, like that. And I thought that would be like a very horror movie choice.
All right.
But if you did that, then that's the only thing the viewer would see. They'd be like, oh my damn, there's a foot in the bucket. So I think that it's so
Like
much better to not do that.
this focus pull happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that the focus is just one drop of blood. So very cool. I love her energy. All right. What's the secret with this card, Craig?
The secret is it was gonna be David Bowie-ish, but then you suggested, hey, is this gonna be your self-insert? So I think you gave a little push there. And yeah, I thought that was a fun one to be in.
Well, I felt like at this point, this was well the idea, and this I think I would credit my very good friend and the editor for this deck, Barbara Moore. Her Eight of Pentacles was the idea of like the more you work on something, the more you perfect it, and you try different versions of things. And after seeing at this point dozens of different thumbnail images and all of the way your mind works to create different layouts and positions, I like the idea of someone like tasked with like creating the seal of the Eternal Order for, you know, for the vampires, and how they would look at it. And I like that they took, so here's this giant one, and then they've already taken these drawings and they're looking at how like the flow of energy. So I thought that was very you kind of thing to do after like, you know, months and months of creating these cards. So I like the idea of having you in the deck.
Yeah, yeah, I liked yeah, that so that turned into an afternoon of, well, okay, I need the perfect headshot that fits what I've already created.
Yeah.
Get that together. Uh
Nice.
yeah. I'm glad there's like, I don't know why, I just like that there's a little slice in front of my face there, you know. So
Oh, the of the smoke and the,
yeah.
yeah, was that, is that hiding a little, is that like you have to hide a little bit from the camera a little bit, or
You can't put it all out there.
sure, sure.
I also like putting the sort of geometry behind the big skull.
Yeah.
You know, this just sort of fitting in with your idea, the calculating, the careful
Yeah.
planning.
Very cool.
Um, and I'm not a gold guy, but I liked the gray. So it's essentially gray and gold.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, weird things like that, like what color is dominated also.
Well, I like that because the it's a very functional card. I mean, like, it's like a work hard kind of card, and I know that like the color brown and the brown tones are considered very professional and
Hmm.
very businessy. I remember like when I was in college, the UPS did the "What can brown do for you?"
Yeah,
Ads. I remember my teacher at the time, like one day being like, "That's a terrible idea. Why would they do that?" This is an advertising copywriting class, and then like a week later, he's like, "I was wrong. It's the campaign is doing so well." So like the idea of like those brown tones being very like worky and functional and professional.
yeah, it's interesting doing all the cards, like certainly not knowing as much as you and knowing a lot less. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, you know. I was able
Yeah.
to, you know, think about all our themes and your
Yeah.
specific descriptions and just like focus on that and let other things sort of come through or not come through depending.
Yeah.
So yeah, the final thing on this is that the smoke cuts through the artist's eye and the skull's eye too. So
Oh, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that. That's really cool. I love that rhyming or
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So this one as a nod to I love The Hunger with
yeah.
Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon. And there's this moment in The Hunger where uh Catherine Deneuve's vampire character has this bust, like a Roman bust, and Susan Sarandon says, "Oh, that looks like you," and Catherine like, "Oh, does it?" And so I love the idea, like the Nine of Pentacles. I went back and forth with some different ideas, and I presented some like weird stuff, like the idea that in Alaska the sun doesn't rise. Is that a thing? I don't remember like trying different things, and I think Barbara Moore and I were talking. She's like, you know, a lot of women who read tarot, the Nine of Pentacles is very important to them because it shows the self-made woman, the woman who has like worked very hard to create something wonderful for herself. And so I loved the way we. I remember the suggestion was that for her, She's so like the seal of the Eternal Order is just wallpaper for her at this point. She's been in this so long. And I also love that you put the Falcon, famously the Nine of Pentacles on the Rider-Waite Smith as a falcon. And I think that it made sense to have the Horus Falcon here because, you know, vampires like can be
Yeah,
for centuries old.
yeah, yeah. Another way to, you know, because the it's just like we were just talking about the last card. Like, do things, put them in, and let them, you know, be uh suggestive. You know, so
Yeah.
you know it can be very calculated, but it can also sneak itself into place. You know, without.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was probably looking at the writer on that.
Yeah. I
Shoes. We needed some, you know, luxury things
yeah.
for this very powerful woman.
I
Um,
like the two candles. I think it it's okay. This is like when the writer doesn't trust themselves. I'm like, okay, like how will people know? Like that's her. Get it, guys. That's her. And I think that having the two candles helps
it's
communicate that.
subtle, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. It's a great subtle little hint. Like
Yeah.
they're exactly there and
I,
there.
yeah. I think that was you entirely. And also like the idea that like it can't just be exactly her. This has to be her in the Roman Empire. So it has her features, but you know, the hair is different, that kind of thing. So what else is there to say about
It was just yeah, a very different scene.
yeah,
Some of the were done.
there's no blood flying around. So here we have the found family coming together, and I love this is so we're talking about like the browns of the pinnacle suit, like golds and the rich colors, and this like totally like sings in that way. And I like love that you've done the applied the tree of life is suggested in the Ten of Pentacles on the Rider-Waite Smith, and you have that here, but in this cool archway door. And I love that everyone's touching each other. Everyone's so connected to each other. In your, I think that was a you choice, and just that these people either are trying to steal his wallet or are just really, you know, have a closeness with each other. I love this print on his pinstripe.
Yeah, yeah. He's gotten even more stylish as the years go by.
He really has.
Yeah, this is our vampire family. It's, you know, so a human family might have all those echoes of looking similar to each other,
Yeah,
but vampire family, you know, let's connect them with the hands.
yeah,
Although that might be his like protege slash rival in the background
yeah.
there.
Yeah. There's you know team of rivals going on, but I think that's good in
But
that
yeah,
kind of
he's constructed this family very
yeah,
Batiste as opposed to the human way.
yeah. So this card, I love. Well, so the vampire lawyer joke, you know, okay, it starts out as a joke. Okay, well, who would the Page of Pentacles be? Well, a lawyer. But if you think about like the Eternal Order, I think that the vampires have to they have incredible power and reach, and they usually have to work within systems of government to rule. They're not like just in modern vampire fiction, you're not a Carpathian lord in a castle surrounded by impaled people, you know, who have to do your will. There's a subtlety, and the pentacle suit is always suggesting things in kind of a thoughtful way. But I love how lethal he looks, even though you know he's got a kind of a desk job. I love the way you laid out the contracts, and they make them even more imposing, like he's in control of you. But like the blue on him is just so, and the way it's mirrored in the building behind it, like just the coolness of this blue to go against the gold uh is just I don't know. I find it really compelling, and it just makes him look like so much more sinister.
Yeah, he's just our page, but he, you know, all that corporate power of that building is sort of flowing into him in his head there. Um, just to because, you know, a lawyer is a lawyer, but all the power, you know, all the organization behind him is
Yeah.
what's so threatening, right? So
And I like the rhyming kind of like this skyscraper behind him is this like strong vertical pillar, and it kind of it is this intentional. It matches his stance and sort of it's just like giving us strength
Yeah.
or suggesting strength.
Yeah, yeah. I just he had to be that corporate guy with and not distant. It's like right there, the whole city's behind him.
Yeah,
Yeah, fun image. Gold. Yeah,
yeah.
a touch of gold and brown on it. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know about the browns for corporate. Yeah, that worked out.
It makes sense. It's just it sells it. I love the POV of this card. I remember writing like vampire bodyguard shield, and I but this is a people might not know this is a caryatid, which is a kind of Greek sculpture that holds up the temple roof, and so you'll see outside of ancient Greek buildings sometimes these figures of women who represent different mythological ideas or virtues or nymphs. And so I love the idea of this cool statue, but it's also a pillar, a column holding up the roof, which is very pentacles.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, I remember you specifically saying like she is the knight. She's in this lower, she's not at the top of the heap, but she's part of this like whole powerful organization, an important
yeah,
part, so we need to see all that wealth. Um, so that's the mansion, but let's
yeah.
let's like make it a little extra and put like that crazy statue in there too.
It's so cool. I just love that. How imposing that is. To like, it's one of the ones that makes you go like, I don't know, a little mind bendy just seeing that angle.
Yeah, it worked out great because like their faces are actually sort of right next to each other. And it's
Yeah.
like a little tricky. It's clearly in the background, and yet, they're sort of interacting with each other.
And I remember trying to like, how do we sell that she's a bodyguard? I remember like, well, I feel like bodyguards are always touching their ear. It's like they like to have an earpiece implied, and I like the what you did with that. That she's speaking to her earpiece.
We snuck a little of that body armor strength,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah, absolutely. With
slightly
the
different
this.
style than the other guys,
Yeah.
than the swords. Slightly
Yeah. More
style,
defensive.
personal, yeah, more defensive. But
And
I
I
like
love
the idea of making one of those a shield. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and it speaks to like, like a vampire warrior in the sword suit is going to be lethal and crazy and over the top. And then the knight, that warrior energy in the pentacle suit is going to be more defensive and tactical and strategic and is going to make a thoughtful decision as opposed to a gut reaction like the knight of
yeah,
swords. So here we have I love the serenity of this card. I remember not being sure. There's not usually a lot of plus size people in vampire fiction unless it gets into a body horror place. But I know we wanted to have this deck be diverse and have people see themselves. So like I thought that the Queen of Pentacles was a great place for that. And the idea, this is actually, I think this was inspired by like Elvira's famous moon bathing photo. But the idea of like bathing in the light of the moon and enjoying this life and enjoying the comforts of being a vampire. She's not plotting for anything. She's not catching it. She's got her Bloody Mary cocktail going on. For her, that the seal of the Eternal Order is functional. It's her end table, and then her she's like the her hound, her faithful hound, I think is a greyhound. I remember trying to be sure that they weren't the same dog throughout the deck. So like but and I love the kind of the gold color of her lipstick. And then also the her jewelry is more like organic. She's got flower. I think this is entirely a you thing. I don't think I came up with this. The idea that her tiara is of flowers, and then the here the earring being plants as well.
yeah. She's in that luxury of you know she's out in the open. She's exposed, but she's not because
Yeah.
they own this land for
For
miles
miles around. Yeah.
around. There's nobody here except her, that she doesn't know about. And but yeah, yeah. If you're gonna have all that, what is all that wealth for? What is all that power for?
Mhm.
Hopefully, hopefully you lean back and enjoy it
Yeah, love it.
this time. Yeah.
So the King of Pentacles, the final card you did, I think I recall. I think I remember wondering in the beginning. So this is the idea that vampires store blood for some,
Mm-hmm.
which I think feels very like True Bloody, and that like they of course have lots of wealth. We've seen lots of gold and beautiful mansions and things like that, but the idea that a blood stockpile might be really cool. And I remember like originally thinking like, should he be wearing like a lab coat? But that wasn't very kingly. And I love this super cool modern, little more Eastern style suit that you have for the vampire king. And I also love that. I remember this was the one I was like, where is the full moon? I wrote that the damn full moon. We've got 15 of these moon cards so far. And I think I wrote like maybe it's on a monitor, and I love the way you included it that way.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was a good idea to put it in there. And something I just felt like it needed one little extra bit. So it sort of, he's got many of these monitors, you know,
Yeah,
they're feeding him all the information on this empire he has. But yeah, he's not stolid. He's stylish.
yeah, he is.
Well, he's got a little extra flair to his suit.
Yeah,
Um, he is super confident in his whole control of this stock.
yeah, and I love the one. I love the reflection of the glasses, but like I feel like I remember we talked about like should vampires have crowns, and we kind of I think early. I feel like I remember a conversation about like just should the emperor be wearing a crown, but that felt like not something you usually see in fiction. But I like the way that you would hint at these things. So like his hat looks really like kind of has got kind of a crown quality, and the like angle of it just
Hmm.
has this sort of authority and regality that I love. And those are nice shoes. The spats on them, my God. So anyway, very cool. And also it's just like such a red card and this red energy, but it's so organized. This isn't like blood floating all over everything. It's just so organized and so intense. Which
Oh yeah, I'm glad that worked out. Yeah, I wanted to high tech to the point of you know, because we have that just a little touch of cyberpunk, and it just I was like, yeah, this is cool. This vampire's in like a completely different environment than any of our other vampires, but it fits. You know, it fits with this little touch of sci-fi.
yeah, really, really cool. I think yes. And I do have the final image that was created for the deck was the backs. I remember wanting to suggest like the themes of the deck, like the urban modern vampires, like the aspect city of night, but also like the beauty and this idea, the interplay between the mortal lily, the vulnerability and innocence of the lily, and then the beautiful rose with these like deadly thorns that you put on it that are so cool. They're okay. The decision about their orientation. I know there's a lot of controversy, and so for tarot, some people want the decks to the backs to be in such a way that you can't tell
Yeah.
if they're upright or not if you read reversals. And we would have had to put like four like flowers like on that. I think we even tried a version of that. But
Uh,
what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, no, I forget what we tried. Yeah, but it's 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 distinctly, yeah, it's distinctly two-sided. But can't people just sort of not pay attention?
No. So here's what I liked about that. So the mechanics creating like a sense of so this is a horror deck. So the idea that when you see the lily upright, although sometimes a reverse card is great, you want your 3 of swords, your 10 of swords to be reversed. That's like these conditions going away or dissipating. But I like the idea. So and this I sometimes kick myself, but like when I do a reading with the deck and there's all these lilies up, it makes me, the reader, feel more vulnerable. It makes me feel like I am not completely in power. And I'm before I even turn over the other cards. And honestly, I think that's useful. If you're going to read with reversals, of course, if you don't read with reversals, it's never a problem that the rose is always up. But the idea that when the lily is up, it's this reversed energy of the card. So I think mechanically that's an interesting choice, and Yeah, it plays out when I read with the deck that it has that kind of vibe.
So it's a plus. It's a
It's a
plus.
plus for me. Yes, and people will
That's
feel what
what
I
this is
feel.
about, right? It's that the light death balance. So let's have a little peek. Yeah.
And I love how like gritty this is. I know we talked about whether or not it should have blood on the backs, and I know that's probably a little too much, but I love how gritty this like this is a manhole, right?
Yeah, it
Like
is, but it's so beautiful, isn't
it
it?
is a beautiful manhole cover. It's a gorgeous like steampunk, futuristic. I love it. I think it's really cool. Anyway, thank you so much, Craig, for walking through the cards with me for our creators commentary. I hope
Yeah.
people understand that this deck was a love letter both to the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot and to vampire fiction of all different styles and different genres and takes. And so we're huge vampire fans, and we wanted this deck to take what people love and know about vampire fiction and allow that to empower their reading so that they have that connection and they're able to make that connection between the lore and the stories and the meanings of the cards. And if whatever device you're using to watch this video has the power to purchase this deck and have it to your doorstep within like 2 days. So if you've enjoyed this like the walkthrough, and if you've been thinking about the deck, maybe this is the right time of the year. Maybe you want to purchase a copy of your own Tarot of the Vampires. Any final thoughts, Craig?
Yeah, I agree. When you look at the cards on the computer, there's a slight weird thing that happens with reds, and they get a little fuzzy and blurry. They look so good on the cards, I have to tell
Yeah,
you. It's such an amazing job at Llewellyn. We looked at this sort of early uh, PDF of it, and they were bright, super saturated, and that is so they print properly, and they came out great. So if you love anything about October,
yeah.
or fires, or a little flavor of the urban fantasy, yeah, I think you'll enjoy it a lot.
All right. Thanks for watching.